post the state elections. But on the issue of reforms, on the issue of measures to boost consumption, what's the expectation? A lot of industry experts who have joined us on the channel believe that, like the MNREGS, there should be some sort of a support scheme for the urban unorganized worker. Is that an ask that you believe will be dealt with, will be addressed this time around in the budget? Is that a hope?
Shireen, that clearly is a hope, and that is a ask from CIA as well. And because this pandemic has shown us that the urban poor suffered significantly through the lockdowns, and we all know what happened. We all witnessed those scenes. Hence, they need a umbrella cover as well, like the rural poor. And we've seen that Manrega has done a great job over the years, and we hope that the government continues to focus on that, but also create a urban equivalent. So that's clearly one ask. I also believe that, as Naren mentioned, the continued investment in infrastructure from the government side, and then with private capital investment coming in, that again will help to create more jobs. It will help, as a result of that, to create more consumption demand. And finally, we can see in this wave, which has been managed quite well, we can see healthcare facilities all up there and standing, that
Very good morning. Namaskar. Thank you for participation. And firstly, I would like to start from the economic survey. That economic survey is very, very pragmatic and promising, where they have projected an 8.8 to 8.5% growth for the next financial year. And for the current financial year, they have projected 9.2%, which is very, very promising and in line with the expectations of the PSD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And we have recommended so many suggestions to the government, starting from the agriculture sector to the financial markets, including the MSME sector, NBFCs, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses, then suggestions for the health sector and education sector. And our main connotation is to provide ease of doing business at the ground level, because the ease of doing business will become fruitful only if there is reduced cost of doing business, which is very, very high at this juncture and impacting the price cost margins of the producers significantly. So to enhance the production possibilities, we have requested the government to address the high inflation and particularly the input costs of the manufacturers, particularly for the MSME sector. So with these words, I would like to start from the welcome remarks by our President, Shri Pradeep Multani ji, and I request him to address the participants of PSD Chamber at this juncture, when we are waiting for a great budget at 11 a.m. from Honorable Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman ji, including all the suggestions and meeting all the aspirations of the people. So, Shri Pradeep Multani ji, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. S.P. Sharma. A very good morning to all. I welcome today Dr. N.R. Bhanumurthy, renowned economist and Vice Chancellor, Base University, Bengaluru, Shri Saket Dalmia, Senior Vice President, PhD Chambers, Shri Sanjeev Agarwal, Vice President, Shri Sanjay Agarwal, former President, our other former Presidents, Chairs and Co-Chairs of expert committees, Managing Committee members, Shri Saurabh Sanyal, Secretary General, Dr. S.P. Sharma, Chief Economist, ladies and gentlemen, friends from media. The Economic Survey 21-22 has projected the growth rate of 8 to 8.5% in financial year 2023 on the back of macroeconomic stability and well-placed effective reforms undertaken by the government. It is encouraging to note that the growth in financial year 23 will be supported by widespread vaccine coverage, gains from supply-side reforms, and easing regulations, robust export growth, and availability of fiscal space to ramp up capital spending. The Economic Survey estimates financial year 22 growth rate at 9.2%, of which the agriculture and allied sectors is estimated to grow by 3.9%, industry at 11.8%, and services at 8.2%. It is laudable that the government consumption is estimated to grow by a strong 7.6%, which is higher than the pre-pandemic levels, and the private consumption is estimated to recover 97% of corresponding pre-pandemic output level. Though the country had a fairly high fiscal deficit even before COVID-19, which worsened during the pandemic, it is motivating to note that government has the fiscal capacity to maintain the support and ramp up capital expenditure when required on the back of strong revival in revenues. Going ahead, we look forward to a vibrant, growth-oriented Union Budget 2022-23, which ensures a great focus on refueling the consumption demand, private investments, and employment creation through ensuring hassle-free credit availability to industry, particularly for MSMEs, improving ease of doing business for MSMEs, reducing cost of doing business, creating level playing field for the industry, and timely justice for people and industry. Our suggestions for budget. The reforms should be undertaken to bolster the MSME sector given its significant contribution in the economic and social development of the country. The focus should be on easing the compliance for MSMEs as well as large companies, easing the availability and access to finance for MSMEs. To attract private investment in the area of agribusiness and reduce the agri-wastages, we suggest to increase the public investments in agriculture infrastructure from the current level of 6% of the total gross capital formation to at least 10% in the next 3 years, with an enhancement of 1.5 percentage points every year. We appreciate the government for enhanced health expenditure by 137% in the budget 21-22. And for the current year, we suggest the continued focus on the expenditure on health infrastructure as new variants of coronavirus are hitting the country again and again. To increase the tax base, we have to encourage people to pay the taxes with lucrative tax-paying benefits, such as providing a threshold of pension after the retirement above the age of 60 years for those who pay taxes continuously and honestly. This will increase the tax base in the country. On the socio-economic front, focus on twin merit goods of education with skill development and basic health with safety must continue with a longer-term vision. Focus on education as well as skill development is the need of the hour in order to reap the dividends of a demographic advantage and would hold a crucial place for supporting India in its journey towards being Atmanirbhar. It is suggested that the education expenditure as a percentage of GDP needs to be maintained above the level of 3% of GDP. With these words, I welcome you all to today's session and look forward to vibrant, growth-oriented Union Budget 22-23 presentation by Honorable Finance Minister Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman. Thank you, Jai Hind, and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very pinpointed suggestions in a very, very crisp mood. And health reforms and education reforms are needed at this juncture to move forward and to sustain the growth trajectory of Indian economy. We welcome our former President, Shri Rajiv Talwarji, and I request all the dignitaries to lighten the lamp, please. And I request Vipin Boraji and our co-chair of the Economic Affairs Committee, Shri Ashish Ghoshji, to come on the stage to lighten the lamp. So now we invite great economist Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy for his viewpoint, how the government is going to produce the Union Budget 22-23, and what are the expectations of the industry and the intellectuals from the policy front to move forward with the more and more strong economic growth trajectory in the coming time. Shri Bhanumurthy ji, please.
Can you hear me, Dr. Sharma?
Yes, sir. Yes, please
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
So good morning, everyone. I know we have been very keenly waiting for the 11 o'clock for the union budget. And in fact, first of all, let me thank PhD Chamber for giving me this opportunity to share something about budget for the 5 minutes. First of all, I think this budget is going to be, a growth-oriented budget. And we have been hoping that the budget will do the good work, continue to do the good work that they have initiated in the last year. I'm sure all of you know, at least from the industry chambers, that the last year budget has been one of the most growth-oriented budgets that was presented in the last 10 years. And we are hoping that there would be a continuation of those policy framework. And a lot of discussion about whether the government should go for fiscal consolidation or to go for growth. In my view, and based on my own studies in the past, I don't see there are two completely different, mutually exclusive objectives. Indeed, the fiscal consolidation doesn't mean that fiscal compression. Actually, fiscal consolidation means putting the money where we get better returns and also where we get better employment opportunities. As the President Shri Multani pointed out, I think this budget need to focus more on expanding capital expenditure, and he actually highlighted expanding capital expenditure in the agriculture sector. But I think agriculture sector certainly needs more investments. But as the government already laid down the roadmap in terms of the national infrastructure pipeline and integrating that national infrastructure pipeline as well as national monetization pipeline is going to be extremely crucial if you want to really focus on the medium-term growth perspective. Yes, we are going to be one of the fastest growing large economy for the next couple of years. But I do believe that the budget that's going to be presented at 11 o'clock is going to be a great opportunity for the government to not just talk about reviving the growth in the current year or the next year, but actually to talk about, to focus on improving the potential GDP of this country. Right now, any empirical economist would tell you that currently the potential GDP growth would be somewhere close to 5 to 6%. I think that is not really sufficient. And I'm hoping and I'm wishing that the budget will focus on medium-term perspective, not just looking at very short-term perspective. And on the hindsight, I must say, the 2 years of fiscal policy, last 2 years of fiscal policy framework has actually really helped us in a big way. And again, I'm sure members of the PhD chamber will agree with me. Compared to many advanced economies, we are not really facing a runaway inflation that they are actually facing. So that actually, supports the fiscal policy or the monetary policy strategy that Government of India as well as RBI has been adopting for the last 2 years. And I think inflation, I mean, I've seen a lot of people writing about it. Inflation, I'm sure RBI is in a very, very much better position in containing the inflation in the coming period. But I think this budget should be taken as an opportunity to really focus on the medium-term growth perspective of at least reaching 7.5 to 8%. And in fact, and I keep talking in PhD chambers, I keep saying that we have actually forgotten the 5 trillion economy. I'm glad there are a lot of discussion about 5 trillion economy right now, and I'm only hoping that the finance minister will bring back this 5 trillion economy as a medium-term target. And at the same time, we will have a very predictable fiscal policy roadmap, which was missing in the last budget. And the revised Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act may be one important ingredient that we will keenly looking at. There's some people talked about, a sectoral support like, urban employment guarantee, similar to the rural employment. And these are all going to take a long time. They're all very welcoming, but at the same time, as we know that implementing some of these programs at the urban sector is going to be extremely difficult. And rather, I think what is important is the government should come out with sectoral interventions like the PLI scheme that has come up. So there would be some kind of a sectoral intervention to really help all the sectors, especially the service sector. If you look at the contact intensive sectors, actually not really recovered as much as the manufacturing as well as agriculture. So I do hope the budget will really focus on the contact intensive sectors, and at the same time help the recovery, what are the recovery that we are seeing in the current year, be a kind on a permanent basis. It should not be a one-off event. And I think what we are looking at is a very strong V-shaped recovery in the coming period. So as all of you, I'm also looking very keenly for the budget to be presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Bhanumurthy, for your very, very candid inputs. And vaccination is a great indicator now that has become also an economic indicator to move forward and to strengthen the health system in the country. So with these words, I would like to invite our former President, Shri Rajiv Talwarji, advisor DLF Limited, for his viewpoint, very crisp viewpoint on the budget expectations, what the government is going to produce in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, and of course, Sanjay and Saurabh-ji, and all our distinguished Mehta Sahab, of course. So you deserve to be here more than anyone else. This is a great opportunity. I think that this budget is going to cement the fact that our tax reforms, whether it was the corporate tax or whether it was the GST, have done really well. The government has done exceedingly well under the finance minister's leadership for the last 2 years to tackle the pandemic, its impact. And of course, as everyone has said, the poor have suffered immensely due to the migration. I think 3 big ideas or 3 sectors which need to be covered are education, health, infrastructure, and housing. The 3 big ideas which need to be tackled on the longer vision are what the Prime Minister had said, first of all, which was housing for all. I think we need to make about 8 crore homes of 300 square feet size all over India, because if 80 crore people are going to live in cities by 2050, then we should not have a repeat scene that slums and slums and slums or unauthorized colonies have 50% of the people living. I think a pakka roof over your head is the dream of the Prime Minister. It must be fulfilled by private sector participation on government land, which should be free of cost, because that is where you can make homes and give them on rent as low as 50 rupees per day. You have electricity, water, gas, of course, OFC cable network to give them a smart city and a smart home, so that women and girls get the greatest amount of security, and then the participation rate of females goes up, and that is how the economy moves forward. Health, of course, we all know, and of course, InvITs and the infrastructure and REITs. I think the 3 big ideas to follow will be: 1, affordable housing for all; number 2, cooperatives. Another dream of the Prime Minister, which he has made a separate ministry for cooperatives. I think because of the repeal of farm laws, which were the best reforms in the last 2 or 3 decades, I think we need to start cooperatives in the agricultural sector, so that people who own 2.5 acres or less than that land actually get an economic return from their land, making good new crops, economic cash crops, and make a movement like what has happened to the dairy farming sector. That in the dairy farming sector, if people have gone from 3 animals to something like 30 or 300, and this is a vibrant movement, we are the biggest producers of milk in the world. I think similarly, we need to tell the farmer that yes, he will get a fair economic return. And the third sector is the MSME sector, which contributes 30% to the GDP. I think we need to make it easy for them to do business. We need to get lesser compliances by them. and give them enough financial incentives to induct technology as well as engineering services into them, so that basically they produce world-class goods, not only for the Indian market, but also for the exports, which, as we can see from various examples, that if we are to become a world power, we've achieved 3 trillion already. If we have to go to 15 to 20 trillion, then exports must play a very major role. And I think in this, the MSME sector can actually contribute a lot. Just in the big sector, in the big industry sector, we've seen pharma, we've seen vaccines, and most of all, autos. Now that has to shift to the electrical vehicle mode to give you more of carbon credit, more of cleaner cities, and a better technological future. I think those are the big ideas that we need to work. And I hope many of the concessions or incentives which the middle class and pensioners are asking for in the budget and the tax rates, I hope they come true in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the great ideas. And all these ideas are very, very important to move forward and to become the $5 trillion economy in the coming times. So I request our former president, Shri Sanjay Agarwal ji, to provide his viewpoint before Madam Nirmala Sitharaman produces her budget of 2022-2023. Shri Sanjay Agarwal ji, please.
I think yesterday's economic survey has been a very, very big sentiment booster. We all are very happy to see the very encouraging numbers. The one number that encourages me very, very specially is the halving of the fiscal deficit, which means that the government has actually had a deficit lower by 7 lakh crore rupees over what was projected. Now, 7 lakh crore rupees is a huge achievement for the fisc. It is something that puts a lot of optimism into our projections for the coming year, because now what we have been waiting for all the last 2 years, what with the national infrastructure pipeline, in which we are supposed to be spending around 100 lakh crore rupees, and the Gati Shakti scheme announced by the Prime Minister on the ramparts of Red Fort on the 15th of August this year, 100 lakh crore Gati Shakti scheme. All these schemes require a lot of investment, and that investment, in the current status of things, the way these things are, it's going to be made by the government, by the public sector. This money is not going to be ponied up by the private sector, as of now at least. And we now have a clear path, we have a clear vision that this money is available. Let us make sure that our infrastructure spend during the coming financial year is nothing less than 30 lakh crore rupees, considering that there is an overlap between Gati Shakti and between the national infrastructure pipeline schemes. Even then, the moment we make sure that we do this sort of expenditure into our infra, we are addressing a lot of problems. This K-shaped recovery, which we are talking about, it is a fact. We cannot wish it away. And why this K-shaped recovery is there? Because the large primary producers, the large organized sector has definitely benefited. They are doing very well. But the lower sections, the middle class, the lower middle class, the daily wage earners, they have suffered very badly. And for them to generate work, to generate employment, what you need is investment into infrastructure. And as our former President Rajiv ji said, especially into construction, these are the industries which have the best multiplier effect for both employment and for the GDP to grow. So this is one thing that I would personally expect the government to be taking special care. We have the intentions, and now we have the money. So we have both the intentions and the money. Let's do it. There's one more thing, one more problem that is facing the downstream sector or the MSMEs. That is the high commodity prices. That needs to be addressed. The commodity prices being high worldwide is not something the government of India can do much about. But what the government of India can do is to reduce, or rather even remove the customs duties to, or reduce the customs duties to zero for those commodities where the prices have gone up more than 50% during the last 1 year. Because the problem that is happening is that while the commodity price producers, the primary producers are very happy, The downstream producers are a big problem, and the downstream industry, the MSMEs, they are the largest employers. 11 crore employment is provided by the MSMEs, which are in a serious problem. One more thing that needs to be looked after for the MSMEs is the ECLGS scheme. That 5 lakh crores has been very well spent, I would say. In fact, it's not even spent, it's only a guarantee, but it has been a big support to the MSMEs. Our recommendation is that at least 2 lakh crore further should be added to the scheme. The travails of the COVID pandemic have not gone away, and the MSME sector seriously needs to be continued with this support. So with this, I think I've tried not to repeat the suggestions of my previous speakers. And I think this is more or less the gist of what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your great focus on the MSME sector, which contribute at around 30% in the GDP. But the share of manufacturing MSMEs is very, very meager. That is only 8%. Rest is contributed by the services sector MSMEs. And services sector, if you observe the economic survey, is still impacted. All the other sectors have recovered more than 100% during the last 1 year, but services sector only recovered less than 97%. So that is a great, I believe, support of the Indian economy in the coming times. So government must provide some measures for the services sector, the contact services, because small businesses in the services sector were significantly impacted because of the nature of stop and start. Sometimes stop, start, stop, start. That was the nature of the economy during the last 2 years. So moving ahead, we expect a great budget from the Honorable Finance Minister, balancing the inflation scenario and creating a great trajectory of demand and incomes to move forward and to strengthen the economic growth, which is now very, very visible, and we are the fastest moving economy in the world economic system. So with these words, great hopes from the budget. Let's see how Honorable Finance Minister is going to balance the economic indicators. Thank you very much.
Balance both the need for near-term support to the economy, especially on the capex front, which I think is much needed, but also the fact that the global environment, higher crude prices, more aggressive tightening by the Fed is less benign at this point. Now, a lot will depend on how that consolidation is achieved. If in fact that consolidation is achieved through higher privatizations next year, some of which could not be done this year, then in fact a lot of fiscal space opens up, because I spoke about subsidies being almost a percentage point higher this year than were budgeted. Some of that space will open up next year, and some of that could be redirected towards capital expenditures. Our sense is the government's very clear strategy over the last 2 years has been to push physical infrastructure. I would argue we should add health and education to that. And I think that's the right strategy. Execution will be critical to meet budgeted targets, but I think that is the right approach even for FY23.
Okay, Sajid, thanks a lot for your time today. Of course, that's the parliament. You have the speaker there, and we'll have the budget session starting soon, and the finance minister will be presenting the budget. The market is very excited. Keep in mind, there's also the global market angle, which is involved here, and most global markets have been surging for last 2 days. So Indian markets have been part of that. There's a bit of budget excitement as well. That's, of course, Om Birla, the chairman of the Lok Sabha, the speaker of the Lok Sabha, and we'll cut to parliament now, I guess.
Yes, I think this.
Okay,
Well, the speaker, I think, will be very soon calling the finance minister to lay the budget on the table of the Lok Sabha. I think he's just reading out the business of parliament, but we should expect it shortly. Maybe we can cut to the speaker.
मंत्री जी आज डिजिटल बजट पढ़ रही हैं।
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, sir, I present the budget for the year 2022-23. At the outset, At the outset, sir, I want to take a moment to express my empathy
We welcome our President Shri Pradeep Multani ji.
towards health and economic effects of the pandemic. The overall sharp rebound and recovery of the economy is reflective of our country's strong resilience. India's economic growth in the current year is estimated to be 9.2%, highest among all large economies. I recognize we are in the midst of an Omicron wave with high incidence but milder symptoms. Further, the speed and coverage of our vaccination campaign has helped greatly. With an accelerated improvement of health infrastructure in the past 2 years, we are in a strong position to withstand challenges. I am confident that with Sabka Prayas, we will continue our journey with strong growth. Honorable Speaker, we are marking Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and have entered into Amrit Kal, the 25-year-long lead up to India at 100. Honorable Prime Minister in his Independence Day address had set out the vision for India at 100. By achieving certain goals during Amrit Kal, our government aims to attain this vision. They are complementing the macroeconomic level growth focus with a microeconomic level all-inclusive welfare focus, promoting digital economy and fintech, technology-enabled development, energy transition, and climate action, and relying on virtuous cycles starting from private investment with public capital investment, helping to crowd in private investment. Since 2014, our government's focus has been on empowerment of citizens, especially the poor and the marginalized. Measures have included programs that have provided housing, electricity, cooking gas, and access to water. We also have programs for ensuring financial inclusion and direct benefit transfers. We are committed to strengthening the abilities of the poor to tap all opportunities. Our government constantly strives to provide the necessary ecosystem for the middle classes, a vast and wide section which is populated across various middle income brackets, to make use of the opportunities they so desire. This budget seeks to lay the foundation and give a blueprint to steer the economy over Amrit Kal of the next 25 years, from India at 75 to India at 100. It continues to build on the vision drawn in the budget of 21-22. Its fundamental tenets, which included transparency of financial statement and fiscal position, reflect the government's intent, strengths, and challenges. This continues to guide us. The initiatives of the last year's budget have seen significant progress and have been provided with adequate allocations in this budget as well. The strengthening of health infrastructure, speedy implementation of the vaccination program, and the nationwide resilient response to the current wave of the pandemic are evident for all. The productivity-linked incentive in 14 sectors for achieving the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat has received excellent response, with potential to create 60 lakh new jobs and an additional production of 30 lakh crore during next 5 years. Towards implementation of the new public sector enterprise policy, the strategic transfer of ownership of Air India has been completed. The strategic partner for Neelanchal Ispat Nigam Limited has been selected. The public issue of the LIC is expected shortly. Others too are in the process for 2022-23. The National Bank
आपको पर्याप्त मौका पर्याप्त अवसर मिलेगा बेटे बेटे टिप्पणी मत कीजिए.
The National Bank for Infrastructure Development and National Asset Reconstruction Company have commenced their activities. Honorable Speaker, sir, Budget 2021-22 had provided a sharp increase in provision for public investment or capital expenditure. Throughout the year, with the Honorable Prime Minister guiding the implementation, our economic recovery is continuing to benefit from the multiplier effect. This budget continues to provide impetus for growth. It lays a parallel track of 1. A blueprint for the Amrit Kal, which is futuristic and inclusive. This will directly benefit our youth, women, farmers, the scheduled castes, and the scheduled tribes. And number 2, big public investment. Number 2, big public investment for modern infrastructure, readying for India at 100. This shall be guided by PM Gati Shakti and be benefited by the synergy of multimodal approach. Moving forward on this parallel track, we lay the following 4 priorities: PM Gati Shakti, inclusive development, productivity enhancement and investment, sunrise opportunities, energy transition, and climate action, and 4, financing of investments. PM Gati Shakti. PM Gati Shakti is a transformative approach for economic growth and sustainable development. The approach is driven by 7 engines, namely roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways, and logistics infrastructure. All 7 engines will pull forward the economy in unison. These engines are supported by the complementary roles of energy transmission, IT communication, bulk water and sewerage, and social infrastructure. Finally, the approach is powered by clean energy and Sabka Prayas. The efforts of the central government, the state governments, and the private sector together, leading to a huge job and entrepreneurial opportunities for all, especially the youth. PM Gati Shakti Master Plan, National Master Plan, the scope of PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan will encompass the 7 engines for economic transformation, seamless multimodal connectivity, and logistics efficiency. It will also include the infrastructure development by the state governments as per Gati Shakti Master Plan. The focus will be on planning, financing, including through innovative ways, use of technology, and speedier implementation. The projects pertaining to these 7 engines in the national infrastructure pipeline will be aligned with PM Gati Shakti framework. The touchstone of the master plan will be world-class modern infrastructure and logistics synergy among different modes of movement, both of people and goods, and location of projects. This will help raise the productivity and accelerate economic growth and development. Road transport. PM Gati Shakti Master Plan for expressways will be formulated in 22-23 to facilitate faster movement of people and goods. The National Highways network will be expanded by 25,000 kilometers in 2022-23. 20,000 crores of rupees will be mobilized through innovative ways of financing to complement the public resources. The data exchange among all mode operators will be brought on unified logistics interface platform, designed for application programming interface. This will provide for efficient movement of goods through different modes, reducing logistics cost and time, assisting just-in-time inventory management, and in eliminating tedious documentation. Most importantly, this will provide real-time information to all stakeholders and improve international competitiveness. Open source mobility stack for organizing seamless travel of passengers will also be facilitated. Contracts for implementation of multimodal logistic parks at 4 locations through PPP mode will be awarded in 22-23. Railways will develop new products and efficient logistics services for small farmers and small and medium enterprises, besides taking the lead in integration of postal and railways network to provide seamless solutions for movement of parcels. One station, one product concept will be popularized to help local businesses and supply chains. As a part of Atmanirbhar Bharat, 2,000 kilometers of network will be brought under Kavach, the indigenous world-class technology for safety and capacity augmentation in 2022-23. 400 new generation Vande Bharat trains will better energy efficiency and passenger riding experience will be developed and manufactured during the next 3 years. 100 PM Gati Shakti cargo terminals for multimodal logistics facilities will be developed during the next 3 years. Innovative ways of financing and faster implementation will be encouraged for building metro systems of appropriate type at scale. Multimodal connectivity between mass urban transport and railway stations will be facilitated on priority. Design of metro systems, including civil structures, will be reoriented and standardized for Indian conditions and needs. Parvat Mala. As a preferred ecologically sustainable alternative to conventional roads in difficult hilly areas, National Ropeways Development Program will be taken up on PPP mode. The aim is to improve connectivity and convenience for commuters, besides promoting tourism. This may also cover congested urban areas where conventional mass transit system is not feasible. Contracts for 8 such ropeway projects for a length of 60 kilometers will be awarded in 22-23. With technical support from the Capacity Building Commission, central ministries, state governments, and their infra agencies will have their skills upgraded. This will ramp up capacity in planning, design, financing, including innovative ways, and implementation management of the PM Gati Shakti infrastructure projects. Inclusive development, our second priority. Agriculture. The procurement of wheat in Rabi 21-22 and the estimated procurement of paddy in Kharif 21-22 will cover 1,208 lakh metric tons of wheat and paddy from 163 lakh farmers, and 2.37 lakh crores will be the direct payment of MSP value to their accounts. Chemical-free natural farming will be promoted throughout the country with a focus on farmers' lands in 5-kilometer wide corridors along the river Ganga at the first stage. 2023 has been announced as the International Year of Millets. Support will be provided for post-harvest value addition, enhancing domestic consumption, and for branding millet products nationally and internationally. To reduce our dependence on import of oil seeds, a rationalized and comprehensive scheme to increase domestic production of oil seeds will be implemented. For delivery of digital and high-tech services to farmers, with involvement of public sector research and extension institutions, along with private agri-tech players and stakeholders of agri-value chains, a scheme in PPP mode will be launched. Use of Kisan drones will be promoted for crop assessment, digitization of land records, spraying of insecticides and nutrients. States will be encouraged to revise syllabi of agricultural universities to meet the needs of natural, zero budget, and organic farming, modern day agriculture, value addition, and management. A fund with blended capital raised under the co-investment model will be facilitated through the NABARD. This is to finance startups for agriculture and rural enterprise relevant for farm produce value chain. The activities of these startups will include inter alia, support for FPOs, machinery for farmers on rental basis at farm level, and technology including IT-based support. The implementation of the Kane-Betwa link project at an estimated cost of 44,605 crores will be taken up. This is aimed at providing irrigation benefits to 9.0 lakh hectare of farmers' lands, drinking water supply to 62 lakh people, 103 megawatt of hydro, 27 megawatt of solar power, allocations of 4,300 crores of rupees in the RE 21-22 and 1,400 crores of rupees in 22-23 have been made for this project. Honorable Speaker, sir, draft DPRs for 5 river links, namely Daman-Ganga Pinjal, Par-Tapi Narmada, Godavari Krishna, Krishna Pennar, and Pennar Kaveri have been finalized. Once a consensus is reached among the beneficiary states, the Center will provide support for their implementation. For farmers to adopt suitable varieties of fruits and vegetables and to use appropriate production and harvesting techniques, our government will provide a comprehensive package with participation of state governments. MSMEs, Udyam, eShram, NCS, and ASEEM portals will be interlinked. Their scope will be widened. They will now perform as portals with live organic databases, providing G2C, B2C, and B2B services. These services will relate to credit facilitation, skilling, and recruitment with an aim to further formalize the economy and enhance entrepreneurial opportunities for all. Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme has provided the much needed additional credit to more than 130 lakh MSMEs. This has helped them mitigate the adverse impact of the pandemic. The hospitality and related services, especially those by micro and small enterprises, are yet to regain their pre-pandemic level of business. Considering these aspects, the ECLGS will be extended up to March 2023, and its guarantee cover will be expanded by 50,000 crores of rupees to total cover of 5 lakh crores. With the additional amount being earmarked exclusively for the hospitality and related sectors. Credit Guarantee Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises, CGT-MSE, scheme will be revamped with required infusion of funds. This will facilitate additional credit of 2 lakh crore for micro and small enterprises and expand employment opportunities. Raising and accelerating MSME performance ramp program will outlay of 6,000 crore over 5 years will be rolled out. This will help MSME sector become more resilient, competitive, and efficient. Skilling programs and partnership with the industry will be reoriented to promote continuous skilling avenues, sustainability, and employability. The National Skill Qualification Framework will be aligned with dynamic industry needs. Digital ecosystem for skilling and livelihood, the Desh Stack e-portal, will be launched. This aims to empower citizens to skill, reskill, or upskill through online training. It will also provide API-based trusted skill credentials, payment and discovery layers to find relevant jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities. Startups will be promoted to facilitate Drone Shakti through varied applications and for drone as a service. In select ITIs in all states, the required courses for skilling will be started. Due to the pandemic-induced closure of schools, our children, particularly in the rural areas and those from scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and other weaker sections, have lost almost 2 years of formal education. Mostly, these are children in government schools. We recognize the need to impart supplementary teaching and to build a resilient mechanism for education delivery. For this purpose, One Class, One TV channel program of PM eVidya will be expanded from 12 to 200 TV channels. This will enable all states to provide supplementary education in regional languages for classes 1 to 12. High-quality e-content in all spoken languages will be developed for delivery via internet, mobile phones, TV, and through radio and through digital teachers. A competitive mechanism for development of quality e-content by the teachers will be set up to empower and equip them with digital tools of teaching and facilitate better learning outcomes. A digital university will be established to provide access to students across the country for world-class quality universal education with personalized learning experience at their doorsteps. This will be made available in different Indian languages and ICT formats. The university will be built on a networked hub and spoke model, with the hub building cutting-edge ICT expertise. The best public universities and institutions in the country will collaborate as a network of hub and spoke. An open platform for the national digital health ecosystem will be rolled out. It will consist of digital registries of health providers and health facilities, unique health identity, consent framework, and universal access to health facilities. The pandemic has accentuated mental health problems in people of all ages. To better the access to quality mental health counseling and care services, a national Tele mental health program will be launched. This will include a network of 23 Tele mental health centers of excellence, with NIMHANS being the nodal center, and International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore, IIIT Bangalore, providing technology support. Recognizing the importance of Nari Shakti as a harbinger of our bright future and for women-led development, during the Amrit Kal, our government has comprehensively revamped the schemes of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Accordingly, 3 schemes, namely Mission Shakti, Mission Vatsalya, Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0 were launched recently to provide integrated benefits to women and children. Saksham Anganwadis are a new generation Anganwadis that have better infrastructure and audio-visual aids, powered by clean energy and providing improved environment for early childhood development. 2 lakh Anganwadis will be upgraded under this scheme. Current coverage of Har Ghar Nal Se Jal is 8.7 crores. Of this, 5.5 crore households were provided tap water in last 2 years itself. Allocation of 60,000 crores of rupees has been made with an aim to cover 3.8 crore households in 2022 and 23. In 22-23, 80 lakh houses will be completed for the identified eligible beneficiaries of the PM Awas Yojana, both rural and urban. 48,000 crores is allotted for this purpose. The central government will work with the state governments for reduction of time required for all land and construction related approvals, for promoting affordable housing for middle class and for the economically weaker sections in urban areas. We shall also work with the financial sector, regulators, to expand access to capital along with reduction in cost of intermediaries. A new scheme, Prime Minister's Development Initiative for the Northeast, will be implemented through the Northeastern Council. It will fund infrastructure in the spirit of PM Gati Shakti and social development projects based on felt needs of the Northeast. This will enable livelihood activities for youth and women, filling the gaps in various sectors. It will not be a substitute for existing central or state schemes. While the central ministries may also post their candidate projects, priority will be given to those posted by the states. An initial allocation of 1,500 crores of rupees will be made, and the initial list of projects is given in Annexure 1 of my speech. Our vision to improve the quality of life of citizens in the most backward districts of the country through Aspirational Districts program has been translated into reality in a very short span of time. 95% of those 112 districts have made significant progress in key sectors such as health, nutrition, financial inclusion, and basic infrastructure. They have surpassed even some of the state average values. However, in those districts, some blocks continue to lag. In 22-23, the program will focus on such blocks in those districts. Border villages with sparse population, limited connectivity, and infrastructure often get left out from the development gains. Such villages on the northern border will be covered under a new Vibrant Villages program. The activities will include construction of village infrastructure, housing, tourist centers, road connectivity, provisioning of decentralized renewable energy, direct-to-home access for Doordarshan and educational channels, and support for their livelihood generation. Additional funding for these activities will be provided. Existing schemes will be converged. We will define their outcomes and monitor them on a constant basis. In 2022, 100% of 1.5 lakh post offices will come on the core banking system, enabling financial inclusion and access to accounts through net banking, mobile banking, ATMs, and also provide online transfer of funds between post office accounts and bank accounts. This will be helpful, especially for farmers and senior citizens in rural areas, enabling interoperability and financial inclusion. Honorable Speaker, sir, in recent years, digital banking, digital payments, and fintech innovations have grown at a rapid pace in the country. Government is continuously encouraging these sectors to ensure that the benefits of digital banking reach every nook and corner of the country in a consumer-friendly manner. Taking forward this agenda and to mark 75 years of our independence, it is proposed to set up 75 digital banking units in 75 districts of the country by scheduled commercial banks. The financial support for digital payment ecosystem announced in the previous budget will continue in 22-23 as well. This will encourage further adoption of digital payments. There will also be a focus to promote use of payment platforms that are economical and user-friendly. So I move to the next priority. In recent years, over 25,000 compliances were reduced and nearly 1,500 union laws were repealed. This is a result of our government's strong commitment for minimum government and maximum governance. 1,486 union laws were repealed. Our trust in the public and ease of doing business is what is highlighted here, sir. For the Amrit Kal, the next phase of ease of doing business 2.0 and ease of living will be launched. In our endeavor to improve productive efficiency of capital and human resources, we will follow the idea of trust-based governance. The new phase will be guided by an active involvement of the states, digitization of manual processes and interventions, integration of the central and state level systems through IT bridges, a single point access for all citizen-centric services, and standardization and removal of overlapping compliances, crowdsourcing of suggestions and ground-level assessment of the impact with active involvement of citizens and businesses will be encouraged. A single window portal, Parivesh, for all green clearances was launched in 2018. It has been instrumental in reducing the time required for approvals significantly. The scope of this portal will be expanded to provide information to the applicants based on location of units. Information about specific approvals will be provided. It will enable application for all 4 approvals through a single form and tracking of the process through Centralized Processing Center Green, CPC Green. E-passports. The issuance of e-passports using embedded chip and futuristic technology will be rolled out in 22-23 to enhance the convenience for the citizens in their overseas travel. By the time of India at 100, nearly half our population is likely to be living in urban areas. To prepare for this, orderly urban development is of critical importance. This will help realize the country's economic potential, including livelihood opportunities for the demographic dividend. For this, on the one hand, we need to nurture the megacities and their hinterlands to become current centers of economic growth. On the other, we need to facilitate Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities to take on the mantle in the future. This would require us to reimagine our cities into centers of sustainable living with opportunities for all, including women and our youth. For this to happen, urban planning cannot continue with a business as usual approach. We plan to steer a paradigm change. A high-level committee of reputed urban planners, urban economists, and institutions will be formed to make recommendations on urban sector policies, capacity building, planning, implementation, and governance. For urban capacity building, support will be provided to the states. Modernization of building bylaws, town planning schemes, transit-oriented development will be implemented. This will facilitate reforms for people to live and work closer to the mass transit systems. The central government's financial support for mass transit projects and Amrit scheme will be leveraged for formulation of action plans and their implementation for facilitating the TOD and TPS by the states. For developing India-specific knowledge in urban planning and design, and to deliver certified training in these areas, up to 5 existing academic institutions in different regions will be designated as centers of excellence. These centers will be provided endowment fund of 250 crore each. In addition, the AICTE will take the lead to improve syllabi, quality and access of urban planning courses in other institutions. We will promote a shift to use of public transport in urban areas. This will be complemented by clean tech and governance solutions, special mobility zones with zero fossil fuel policy and EV vehicles. Battery swapping policy. Considering the constraint of space in urban areas, for setting up charging stations at scale, a battery swapping policy will be brought out and interoperability standards will be formulated. The private sector will be encouraged to develop sustainable and innovative business models for battery or energy as a service. This will improve efficiency in the EV ecosystem. Efficient use of land resources is a strong imperative. States will be encouraged to adopt unique land parcel identification number to facilitate IT-based management of records. The facility for transliteration of land records across any of the Schedule 8 languages will also be rolled out. The adoption of linkage with National Generic Document Registration System, NGDRS, with the One Nation, One Registration software will be promoted as an option for uniform process of registration and anywhere registration of deeds and documents. Necessary amendments in the code IBC will be carried out to enhance the efficiency of the resolution process and facilitate cross-border insolvency resolution. Accelerated corporate exit. Several IT-based systems have been established for accelerated registration of new companies. Now the Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit, CPACE, will process re-engineering, will be established to facilitate and speed up the voluntary winding up of these companies from the currently required 2 years to less than 6 months. Government procurement. Government rules have recently been modernized for the needs of Amritkal. The new rules have benefited from the inputs from various stakeholders. The modernized rules allow use of transparent quality criteria besides cost and evaluation of complex tenders. Provisions have been made for payment of 75% of running bills mandatorily within 10 days and for encouraging settlements of disputes through conciliation. As a further step to enhance transparency and to reduce delays in payments, a completely paperless, end-to-end online e-bill system will be launched for use by all central ministries for their procurements. The system will enable the suppliers and contractors to submit online their digitally signed bills and claims and track their status from anywhere. To reduce indirect cost for suppliers and work contractors, the use of surety bonds as a substitute for bank guarantee will be made acceptable in government procurements. Business such as gold imports may also find this useful. IRDAI, insurance regulator, has given the framework for issue of surety bonds by insurance companies. AVGC Promotion Task Force. The animation, visual effects, gaming, and comic, the AVGC sector, offers immense potential to employ youth. An AVGC Promotion Task Force with all stakeholders will be set up to recommend ways to realize this and build domestic capacity for serving our markets and the global demand. Telecom sector. Telecommunications in general and 5G technology in particular can enable growth and offer job opportunities. Required spectrum auctions will be conducted in 2022 to facilitate rollout of 5G mobile services within 2022-23 by private telecom providers. A scheme for design-led manufacturing will be launched to build a strong ecosystem for 5G as part of the production-linked incentive scheme. To enable affordable broadband and mobile service proliferation in rural and remote areas, 5% of annual collections under the Universal Service Obligation Fund will be allocated. This will provide and this will promote R&D and commercialization of technologies and solutions. Our vision is that all villages and their residents should have the same access to e-services, communication facilities, and digital resources as urban areas and their residents. The contracts for laying optical fiber in all villages, including remote areas, will be awarded under the BharatNet project through PPP in 22 and 23. Completion is expected in 2025. Measures will be taken to enable better and more efficient use of the optical fiber. Export promotion. The Special Economic Zones Act will be replaced with a new legislation that will enable the states to become partners in development of enterprise and service hubs. This will cover all large existing and new industrial enclaves to optimally utilize available infrastructure and enhance competitiveness of exports. Atmanirbharta in defense. Our government is committed to reducing imports and promoting Atmanirbharta in equipment for the armed forces. 68% of the capital procurement budget will be earmarked for domestic industry in 22-23, up from 58% in 21-22. Defense R&D will be opened up for industry, startups, and academia, with 25% of defense R&D budget earmarked. Private industry will be encouraged to take up design and development of military platforms and equipment in collaboration with DRDO and other organizations through SPV model. An independent nodal umbrella body will be set up for meeting wide-ranging testing and certification requirements. Artificial intelligence, geospatial systems and drones, semiconductor and its ecosystem, space economy, genomics and pharmaceuticals, green energy and clean mobility systems have immense potential to assist sustainable development at scale and modernize the country. They provide employment opportunities for our youth and make Indian industry more efficient and competitive. Supportive policies, light touch regulations, facilitative actions to build domestic capacities and promotion of research and development will guide the government's approach. For R&D in the sunrise opportunities, in addition to efforts of collaboration among academia, industry and public institutions, government contribution will be provided. Energy transition and climate change. The risks of climate change are the strongest negative externalities that affect India and other countries. As Honorable Prime Minister said at the COP26 summit in Glasgow last November, and I quote, "What is needed today is mindful and deliberate utilization instead of mindless, destructive consumption," unquote. The low carbon development strategy, as enunciated in the Panchamrit that he announced is an important reflection of our government's strong commitment towards sustainable development. The strategy opens up huge employment opportunities and will take the country on a sustainable development path. This budget proposes several near-term and long-term actions accordingly. Solar power. To facilitate domestic manufacturing for the ambitious goal of 280 gigawatts of installed solar capacity by 2030, an additional allocation of 19,500 crores for PLI, production-linked incentives, for manufacturing of high-efficiency modules with priority to fully integrate manufacturing units from polysilicon to solar PV modules will be made. Honorable Speaker, sir, the circular economy transition is expected to help in productivity enhancement as well as creating large opportunities for new businesses and jobs. The action plans for 10 sectors such as electronic waste, end-of-life vehicles, used oil waste, toxic and hazardous industrial waste are already ready. The focus will now be on addressing important cross-cutting issues of infrastructure, reverse logistics, technology upgradation, and integration with informal sector. This will be supported by active public policies covering regulations, extended producers' responsibilities, framework, and innovation facilities. 5 to 7% biomass pellets will be co-fired in thermal power plants, resulting in carbon dioxide savings of 38 MMT annually. This will also provide extra income to farmers and job opportunities to locals and help avoid stubble burning in agricultural fields. Saving energy is an important aspect of the energy management. Hence, energy efficiency and savings measures will be promoted. This will be done in large commercial buildings through the energy service company business model. It will facilitate capacity building and awareness for energy audits, performance contracts, and common measurement of and verification protocol. 4 pilot projects for coal gasification and conversion of coal into chemicals required for the industry will be set up to evolve technical and financial viability. The policies and required legislative changes to promote agroforestry and private forestry will be brought in. In addition, financial support will be provided to farmers belonging to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes who want to take up agroforestry. Honorable Speaker, I now move to the 4th priority, financing of investments. Capital investment holds the key to speedy and sustainable economic revival and consolidation through its multiplier effect. Capital investment also helps in creating employment opportunities, induced enhanced demand for manufactured input from large industries and MSMEs, services from professionals, and help farmers through better agri-infrastructure. The economy has shown strong resilience to come out of the effects of the pandemic with high growth. However, we need to sustain that level to make up for the setback of 2020-2021. As outlined in para 5 earlier, the virtuous cycle of investment requires public investment to crowd in private investment. At this stage, private investments seem to require that support to rise to their potential and to the needs of the economy. Public investment must continue to take the lead and prime the private investment and demand in 2022-23. Considering the above imperative, the outlay for capital expenditure in the union budget is once again being stepped up sharply by 35.4% from 5.54 lakh crore in the current year to 7.50 lakh crores in 22-23. This has increased to more than 2.2 times the expenditure of 2019-20. This outlay in 22-23 will be 2.9% of the GDP. Effective capital expenditure, with this investment taken together with the provision made for creation of capital assets through grants and aid to states, the effective capital expenditure of the central government is estimated at 10.68 lakh crores in 22-23, which will be about 4.1% of the GDP. Green bonds. As a part of the government's overall market borrowings in 22-23, sovereign green bonds will be issued for mobilizing resources for green infrastructure. The proceeds will be deployed in public sector projects, which help in reducing the carbon intensity of the economy. GIFT IFSC. World-class foreign universities and institutions will be allowed in the GIFT city to offer courses in the financial management, fintech, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics free from domestic regulations except those by the IFSCA to facilitate availability of high-end human resources for financial services and technology. An international arbitration center will be set up in the GIFT City for timely settlement of disputes under international jurisprudence. Services for global capital for sustainable and climate finance in the country will be facilitated in the GIFT City. Infrastructure status. Data centers and energy storage systems, including dense charging infrastructure and grid-scale battery systems, will be included in the harmonized list of infrastructure. This will facilitate credit availability for digital infrastructure and clean energy storage. Venture capital and private equity invested more than 5.5 lakh crores last year, facilitating one of the largest startup growth system. Scaling up this investment requires a holistic examination of regulatory and other frictions. An expert committee will be set up to examine and suggest appropriate measures. Government-backed funds, NIIF and SIDBI, Fund of Funds, have provided scale capital, creating a multiplier effect. For encouraging important sunrise sectors such as climate action, deep tech, digital economy, pharma, and agri-tech, the government will promote these thematic funds for blended finance, with the government share being limited to 20% and the funds being managed by private fund managers. For financing the infrastructure needs, the stepping up of public investment will need to be complemented by private capital at a significant scale. Measures will be taken to enhance financial viability of projects, including PPP, with technical and knowledge assistance from multilateral agencies. Enhancing financial viability shall also be obtained by adopting global best practices, innovative ways of financing, and balanced risk allocation. Digital rupee. Introduction of a central bank digital currency will give a big boost to digital economy. Digital currency will also lead to a more efficient and cheaper currency management system. It is therefore proposed to introduce digital rupee using blockchain and other technologies to be issued by the Reserve Bank of India starting 2022 and 23. Financial assistance to states for capital investment. Reflecting the true spirit of cooperative federalism, the central government is committed to bolstering the hands of the states in enhancing their capital investment towards creating productive assets and generating remunerative employment. The scheme for financial assistance to states for capital investment has been extremely well received by the states. In deference to the requests received during my meeting with the chief ministers and state finance ministers, the outlay for this scheme is being enhanced from 10,000 crores in the budget estimates to 15,000 crores in the revised estimates for the current year. For 22-23, I'll repeat that sentence for the benefit of many of our honorable members. In deference to the requests received during my meeting with chief ministers and state finance ministers, The outlay for this scheme is being enhanced from 10,000 crores in the BE to 15,000 crores, 15,000 crores in the RE of the current year. For 22-23, the allocation is 1 lakh crore to assist the state in catalyzing the overall investments in the economy. These 50-year interest-free loans are over and above the normal borrowings allowed to the states, are over and above the normal borrowings to the states. This allocation will be used for PM Gati Shakti related and other productive capital investments of the states. It will also include components for supplemental funding for priority segments of PM Gram Sadak Yojana, including support for the state's share, digitization of the economy, including digital payments and completion of OFC network, and reforms related to building bylaws, town planning schemes, transit-oriented development, and transferable development rights. In 22-23, in accordance with the recommendations of the 15th Finance Commission, the states will be allowed a fiscal deficit of 4% of the GSDP, of which 0.5% will be tied to power sector reforms, for which the conditions have already been communicated in 21-22. Fiscal management. As against a total expenditure of 34.83 lakh crores of rupees projected in the BE 21-22, the revised estimate is 37.70 lakh crores. The revised estimate of capital expenditure is 6.3 lakh crores of rupees. This includes an amount of 51,971 crores towards settlement of outstanding guaranteed liabilities of Air India and its other sundry commitments. Coming to the budget estimates, Honorable Speaker, sir, the total expenditure in 22-23 is estimated at 39.45 lakh crores, while the total receipts other than borrowings are estimated at 22.84 lakh crores of rupees. The revised fiscal deficit, Honorable Speaker, in the current year is estimated at 6.9% of the GDP, as against 6.8% projected in the budget estimates. The fiscal deficit is in 22-23 is estimated at 6.4% of the GDP, which is consistent with the broad path of the fiscal consolidation announced by me last year to reach a fiscal deficit level below 4.5% by 25-26. While setting the fiscal deficit level in 22-23, I am conscious of the need to nurture growth through public investment to become stronger and sustainable. I will now move to part B of my speech. Direct tax. Honorable Speaker, sir, I take this opportunity to thank all the taxpayers of our country who have contributed immensely and strengthened the hands of the government in helping their fellow citizens in this hour of need. So I have brought in a little verse from the Mahabharata. I wouldn't spend more time reading because I would like the speech to get enough time. However, the substance of it is the king must make arrangements for yoga kshema, which is the welfare of the populace, by way of abandoning any laxity and by governing the state in line with dharma, along with collecting taxes which are in consonance with dharma. This is Mahabharata Shanti Parva Adhyaya, Shloka 11 from 72. Drawing wisdom from our ancient texts, we continue on the path to progress. The proposals in this budget, while continuing with our declared policy of stable and predictable tax regime, intend to bring more reforms that will take ahead our vision to establish a trustworthy tax regime. This will further simplify the tax system, promote voluntary compliance by taxpayers, and reduce litigation. Introducing new updated return. India is growing at an accelerated pace and people are undertaking multiple financial transactions. The Income Tax Department has established a robust framework of reporting of taxpayers' transactions. In this context, some taxpayers may realize that they have committed omissions or mistakes in correctly estimating their income for tax payment. To provide an opportunity to correct such errors, I am proposing a new provision permitting taxpayers to file an updated return on payment of additional tax. This updated return can be filed within 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. Honorable Speaker, sir, presently, if the department finds out that some income has been missed out by an assessee, it goes through a lengthy process of adjudication. Instead, with this proposal now, there will be a trust repost in the taxpayers that will enable the assessee herself to declare the income that she may have missed out earlier while filing her return. Full details of the proposal are given in the finance bill. It is an affirmative step in the direction of voluntary compliance. Reduced alternative minimum tax rate and surcharge for cooperatives. Currently, cooperative societies are required to pay alternate minimum tax at the rate of 18 and 1.5%. However, companies pay the same rate, which is the alternate minimum tax, at the rate of 15%. To provide a level playing field between cooperative societies and companies, I propose to reduce this rate for the cooperative societies also to 15%. Honorable Speaker, sir, I also propose to reduce the surcharge on cooperative societies from the present 12% to 7% for those having total income of more than 1 crore and up to 10 crores. This would help in enhancing income of cooperative societies and its members who are mostly from the rural and from farming communities. Tax relief to persons with disability. The parent or guardian of a differently abled person can take an insurance scheme for such person. The present law provides for deduction to the parent or guardian only if the lump sum payment or annuity is available to the differently abled person on the death of the subscriber, that is the parent or the guardian. There could be situations where the differently abled dependent may need payment of annuity or lump sum amount even during the lifetime of their parent or guardian. I propose thus to allow the payment of annuity and lump sum amount to the differently abled dependent during the lifetime of the parent and guardians, that is parent or guardians, attaining the age of 60 years. Parity between employees of the state and central governments. At present, the central government contributes 14% of the salary of its employee to the National Pension System, NPS, Tier 1. This is allowed as a deduction in computing the income of the employee. However, such deduction is allowed only to the extent of 10% of the salary in case of employees of the state governments. To provide equal treatment, to both central and state government employees, I propose to increase the tax deduction limit from 10% to 14% on employers' contribution to the MPS account of state government employees as well. This would help in enhancing the social security benefits of the state government employees and bring them at par with central government employees. Incentives for startups. Startups have emerged as drivers of growth for our economy. Over the past few years, the country has seen a manifold increase in successful startups. Eligible startups established before 31/3/2022 had been provided a tax incentive for 3 consecutive years out of the 10 years from incorporation. In view of the COVID pandemic, I propose to extend the period of incorporation of the eligible startup by 1 more year, that is up to 31/3/2023, for providing such tax incentives. Incentives for newly incorporated manufacturing entities under concessional tax regime. In an effort to establish a global competitive business environment for certain domestic companies, a concessional tax regime of 15% was introduced by our government for newly incorporated domestic manufacturing companies. I propose to extend the last date for commencement of manufacturing or production under Section 115B(ab) by 1 more year, that is from 31st March 2023 to 31st March 2024. Scheme for taxation of virtual digital assets. There has been a phenomenal increase in transaction in virtual digital assets. The magnitude and frequency of these transactions have made it imperative to provide for a specific tax regime. Accordingly, for the taxation of virtual digital assets, I propose to provide that any income from transfer of any virtual digital asset shall be taxed at the rate of 30%, 30%. No deduction in respect of any expenditure or allowance shall be allowed while computing such income except cost of acquisition. Further, loss from transfer of virtual digital asset cannot be set off against any other income. Further, in order to capture the transaction details, I also propose to provide for TDS on payment made in relation to transfer of virtual digital asset at the rate of 1% of such consideration above a monetary threshold. Gift of virtual digital asset is also proposed to be taxed in the hands of the recipient. Litigation management to avoid repetitive appeals by the department. It has been observed that a lot of time and resources are consumed in filing of appeals which involve identical issues. Taking forward our policy of sound litigation management, I propose to provide that if a question of law in the case of an assessee is identical to a question of law which is pending in the appeal before a jurisdictional high court or Supreme Court, in any case, the filing of further appeal in the case of this assessee by the department shall be deferred till such a question of law is decided by the jurisdictional high court or the Supreme Court. This will greatly help in reducing the repeated litigation between taxpayer and the department. Taking forward our efforts to further promote the IFSC, I hereby propose to provide that income of a non-resident from offshore derivative instruments or over-the-counter derivatives issued by an offshore banking unit, income from royalty, and interest on account of lease of ship and income received from portfolio management services in IFSC shall be exempt from tax subject to specified conditions. Rationalization of surcharge. In the globalized business world, there are several work contracts whose terms and conditions mandatorily require formation of a consortium. The members in the consortium are generally companies. In such cases, the income of these AOPs has to suffer a graded surcharge up to 37%, which is a lot more than surcharge on the individual companies. Accordingly, I propose to cap the surcharge of these AOPs at 15%, 15%. Further, the long-term capital gains on listed equity shares, units, etc., are liable to maximum surcharge of 15%, while other long-term capital gains are subjected to a graded surcharge, which goes up to 37%. I propose to cap the surcharge on long-term capital gains arising on transfer of any type of assets at 15%. This step will give a boost to startup community, and along with my proposal on the extended tax benefits to manufacturing companies and startups, reaffirms our commitment to Atmanirbhar Bharat. Clarification in relation to health and education cess as business expenditure. The income tax is not an allowable expenditure for computation of business income. This includes tax as well as surcharges. The health and education cess is imposed as an additional surcharge on the taxpayer for funding specific government welfare programs. However, some courts have allowed health and education cess as business expenditure, which is against the legislative intent. To reiterate the legislative intent, I propose to clarify that any surcharge or cess on income and profits is not allowable as business expenditure. Deterrence against tax evasion. Honorable Speaker, sir, presently there is ambiguity regarding set-off of brought forward loss against undisclosed income detected in search operations. It has been observed that in many cases where undisclosed income or suppression of sales, etc., is detected, payment of tax is avoided by setting off of losses. In order to bring certainty and to increase deterrence among tax evaders, I propose to provide that no set-off of any loss shall be allowed against undisclosed income detected during search and survey operations. It has been noticed that as a business promotion strategy, there is a tendency on businesses to pass on benefits to their agents. Such benefits are taxable in the hands of the agents. In order to track such transactions, I propose to provide for tax deduction by the person giving benefits if the aggregate value of such benefits exceeds 20,000 rupees during the financial year. A few other changes are being made, the details of which are there in the finance bill. Indirect taxes. So remarkable progress in GST. GST has been a landmark reform of independent India, showcasing the spirit of cooperative federalism. While aspirations were high, there were huge challenges too. These challenges were overcome deftly and painstakingly under the guidance and the oversight of the GST Council. We can now take pride in a fully IT-driven and progressive GST regime that has fulfilled the cherished dream of India as one market, one tax. There are still some challenges remaining, and we aspire to meet them in the coming year. The right balance between facilitation and enforcement has engendered significantly better compliance and enforcement has engendered better compliance. GST revenues are buoyant despite the pandemic. I would bring in something which I've got to know this morning, not part of my speech, but worth putting in here for the knowledge of the Honorable House. I would like to bring to the notice of this House that the gross GST collections for the month of January 22 are rupees 1,40,986 crores, which is the highest since the inception of GST. This has been possible due to rapid economic growth, recovery, post-COVID. This has been possible due to the rapid economic recovery post-COVID, as well as various policy and administration undertaken by central and state tax administrations. With a focus on deserve applause for this growth. Not only did they adapt to the changes, but enthusiastically contributed to the cost of paying taxes. Special economic zones. In part A of my speech, I have referred to the proposed reforms in SEZs. Alongside, we will also undertake reforms in customs administration of SEZs, and it shall henceforth be fully IT-driven and function on the customs national portal with a focus on higher facilitation and with only risk-based checks. This will ease doing business by SEZ units considerably. This reform shall be implemented by 30th September 2022. Customs reforms and duty rate changes. Customs administration has reinvented itself over the years through liberalized procedures and infusion of technology. Faceless customs has been fully established. During COVID-19 pandemic, customs formation have done exceptional frontline work against all odds, displaying agility and purpose. Customs reforms have played a very vital role in domestic capacity creation, providing level playing field to our MSMEs, easing the raw material supply side constraints, enhancing ease of doing business, and being an enabler to other policy initiatives such as PLI and phased manufacturing plans. My proposal on customs side are aligned to these objectives. Project imports and capital goods. National Capital Goods Policy 2016 aims at doubling the production of capital goods by 2025. This would create an employment opportunities and result in increased economic activity. However, several duty exemptions, even extending to over 3 decades, in some cases have been granted to capital goods for various sectors like power, fertilizer, textiles, leather footwear, food processing, and fertilizers. These exemptions have hindered the growth of the domestic capital goods sector. Similarly, project import duty concessions have also deprived the local producers of a level playing field in areas like coal mining projects, power generation, transmission, or distribution projects, railway and metro projects. Our experience suggests that reasonable tariffs are conducive to the growth of domestic industry and make in India without significantly impacting the cost of essential imports. Accordingly, Honorable Speaker, sir, it is proposed to phase out the concessional rates in capital goods and project imports gradually and apply a moderate tariff of 7.5%. Certain exemptions for advanced machineries that are not manufactured within the country shall continue. A few exemptions are being introduced on inputs like specialized castings, ball screw, and linear motion guide to encourage domestic manufacturing of capital goods. In the last 2 budgets, we have rationalized several customs exemptions. We have once again carried out an extensive consultation, including by crowdsourcing, As a result of these consultations, more than 350 exemption entries are proposed to be gradually phased out. These include exemptions on certain agricultural produce, chemicals, fabrics, medical devices and drugs, and medicines for which sufficient domestic capacity exists. Further, as a simplification measure, several concessional rates are being incorporated in the customs tariff schedule itself instead of prescribing them through various notifications. This comprehensive review will simplify the customs rate and tariff structure, particularly for sectors like chemicals, textiles, and metals, and minimize disputes. Removal of exemption on items which are or can be manufactured in India, and providing concessional duties on raw material that go into manufacturing of intermediate products will go many a step forward in achieving our objective of Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. I shall now take up specific sector-specific proposals. Electronics. Electronic manufacturing has been growing rapidly. Customs duty rates are being calibrated to provide a graded rate structure to facilitate domestic manufacturing of wearable devices, hearable devices, and electronic smart meters. Duty concessions are being given to parts of transformer of mobile phone chargers and camera lens of mobile camera module and certain other such items. This will enable domestic manufacturing of high-growth electronic items. Gems and jewelry. To give a boost to the gems and jewelry sector, customs duty on cut and polished diamonds and gemstones is being reduced to 5%. Simply sawn diamond would attract nil customs duty. To facilitate export of jewelry through e-commerce, a simplified regulatory framework shall be implemented by June this year. To disincentivize import of undervalued imitation jewelry, the customs duty on imitation jewelry is being prescribed in a manner that a duty of at least 400 rupees per kg is paid on its import. Chemicals. Customs duty on certain critical chemicals, namely methanol, acetic acid, and heavy feedstocks for petroleum refining are being reduced, while duty is being raised on sodium cyanide, for which adequate capacity in the domestic arena exists. These changes will help in enhancing domestic value addition. MSMEs. Duty on umbrellas is being raised to 20%. Exemption to parts of umbrellas is being withdrawn. Exemption is also being rationalized on implements and tools for agricultural sector which are manufactured in India. Customs duty exemption given to steel scrap last year is being extended for another year to provide relief to MSME secondary steel producers. Certain anti-dumping and CVD on stainless steel and coated steel flat products, bars of alloy steel and high-speed steel are being revoked in larger public interest considering prevailing high prices of metals. To incentivize exports, exemptions are being provided on items such as embellishment, trimmings, fasteners, buttons, zipper, lining material, specified leather, furniture fittings, and packaging boxes that may be
the finance bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, with these words, I commend the budget to the
leather footwear and other goods. Honorable Speaker, sir, duty is being reduced on certain inputs required for shrimp aquaculture so as to promote its exports. Tariff measure to encourage blending of fuel. Blending of fuel is a priority for this government. To encourage the efforts for blending of fuel, unblended fuel shall attract an additional differential excise duty of rupees 2 per litre from first day of October 22. A few other changes are being made in duty rates customs, tariff and customs law, the details of which are there in the finance bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, with these words, I commend the budget to this august House. Thank you.
Item number
Well,
2.
I think it is definite.
सभा की कार्रवाई
We are starting our post-budget interactions with our former presidents and chairs of the expert committees, Direct Taxes, Indirect Taxes, Industry Affairs Committee, Civil Aviation Committee, and Health Committee. They will be participating in the discussions, and our chair of the Capital Market Committee is also here, Shri Sabharwalji, and the co-chair of the MSMEs Committee. So Ms. Samriti Rastogi will be moderating the session. She is freelancer and she is associated with so many TV channels. So I now hand over to Samriti Rastogi.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. It is indeed my pleasure to host you all for this afternoon. There a very detailed description of union budget presented by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today. Among various factors which were underlined in the union budget were the infrastructure, railways, agriculture, digital economy, hospitality services, health sector, and of course, the focus areas of the budget this year remain Prime Minister's Gati Shakti, inclusive development, productivity enhancement, sunrise opportunities, energy transition, climate change, and financing of investments. So today we have gathered here at India Inc. Speaks Union Budget 2022-23 to discuss the key takeaways, the major takeaways from the Union Budget 22-23. We are joined by a panel of esteemed guests here at the podium. First of all, I would request Mr. Pradeep Multani ji, President, PhD Chamber, to help us understand that what were the major key takeaways of the budget, and is the budget sufficient enough to boost India's growth and development? That I should first of all invite Mr. Ashok Kajaria. Okay. Dr. Mahesh Gupta, former President, PhD Chamber, I would request you to kindly share your opinion on the union budget.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opening remarks on this budget. I feel this is a very historic budget during the pandemic. The reason behind this, we all were looking for creating jobs. We're all looking for post-pandemic, how do we grow? To my mind, the stress on infrastructure development and capital expenditure by the government would greatly enhance what we need to achieve. What we are finding it from 5.5 lakh crores of total capital expenses, it has gone up to 7.5 lakh crore. It's a quantum jump, 50% jump compared to last year. And what the Honorable Finance Minister said, that if we take into account the state expenses on the capital, which is now this will become 10.68 lakh crore, which will be more than 4% of the GDP of the country. And various steps how this money is going to be utilized has been laid down in all sectors, what we can think. Prime Minister's Gati Shakti is one of the most innovative approach in which infrastructure development will happen, whether it's on the road development, whether it's on the logistic park development, whether it's on the agriculture development, digital developments, MSc developments. A lot of schemes have been provided here. Skilling programs have been provided, mental health development, e-education development, the providing drinking water in all houses, more than 3 lakh houses they wish to provide. I think number of schemes have been rolled out. I will not be able to recapitulate all of these schemes, but I find that all aspects of development have been covered in these schemes. And putting up so much of money without putting too much of collection of funds is a remarkable jugglery. I'm using a word jugglery, but this is the way it has been planned out, that our income tax has not been touched, GST has not been touched. And I think the focus would have been on better revenue collections and management of the funds is a very nice presentation of the budget. And I'm sure if this capital expenditure does come up, and comes up efficiently. And this will be a great boost post-pandemic. And I think now a lot of private partnership have been proposed, like even for R&D purpose in the defense sector, private partnership has been proposed. Climate change objectives have been taken. Solar energy developments have been done. More PLI scheme is going to come up in solar energy. And that's a great initiative, the way I look at this bond, at this budget. And even on the customs, some things have been done, and some benefits on the direct taxes have been found out to reduce litigation. And the cooperative movement, the MAT has been reduced from 18.5% to 15%. Incentive for startup have been enhanced by 1 year. New manufacturing units have been enhanced by 1 year. So I think that the COVID effect has been taken up very well, and I give thumbs up to this budget. And I feel that it will go a long way in achieving the objectives of the nation of growing fast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta, for joining us and sparing your valuable time and giving us a brief insight into the union budget. And now I would request Mr. Rajiv Talwar, former president, PhD Chamber, to kindly tell us that how a budget is useful, how this budget is useful for the growth and housing sectors and government's mission to achieve housing for all.
Actually, besides the housing sector, I think one would like to highlight that PLI schemes have been now made and recommended in 14 sectors. PM's Gati Shakti in all the 7 sectors. Growth has been pegged at 9.2%, and it is also envisaged that Make in India schemes will create 6.2 million jobs. The emergency credit line guarantee scheme has been now extended up to 5 lakh crores till 2023. 80 lakh affordable homes are to be made this year, and for the Prime Minister's housing scheme, 48,000 crores has been allocated. Besides this, approvals will with the regulator and financial help will also be provided. So that is a very major scheme and very major initiative for the housing sector, which promotes a large amount of employment generation and also has an equal amount of effect on something like 200 associated industries. That I think is a very big move by the government this year. Similarly, to grant infra status to data centers, which is a new and upcoming commercial activity, which is now being taken up, I think, in the IT sector and in the real estate sector. That is something, again, which would be hugely beneficial to the IT sector, to employment, as well as real estate sector coming up all over India. The SEZ Act is to be amended. while we await the details, I think this is something which is long felt necessary, because the SEZ Act itself was a sunset act right now. So this, I think, is a major thing again. Similarly, provisions for drinking water to be provided in the large number of homes all over the country is a very big move by the government. Besides that, whether it is the NPS indirect taxes, whether it is the fact of updated returns, and also that repetitive appeals will not be made till the law is settled by the respective courts, that I think should be a very good move for reducing the amount of litigation in direct taxes. The surcharge on LTCG being reduced to 15% is a good thing for all, and cooperatives surcharge being reduced to 15% would be a great initiative for promoting agricultural cooperatives, which is something which we were talking about, that 2 or 3 major areas would be affordable housing, which has been covered, agricultural cooperatives, which need to be promoted, and for MSMEs, new taxes and rather the duties which are on various portions to be on equipment, those will be a huge gain that should introduce induction of technology into the MSMEs and hopefully make it easier to do business, and would reflect in the lesser number of compliances which they have to make. That's my view at the moment. It's a first view, but let's go into the details and get views from experts. Mr. Mehta is here, our former president. Mr. Kajaria is here. Ashok Bhai is here, so they are here. I'm sure Sanjay is making some notes. Ashok ji from Chandigarh is online with us, and so is Mr. Ajay Berry. So I'm sure we'll get a large number of views on the budget and details which they may have seen. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Talwar. It is indeed our privilege to host such an eminent panel of experts today who are joining us physically and virtually for this very important discussion. Now, I would request Mr. Ashok Kajaria, former President, PhD Chamber, to kindly join us live. Mr. Kajaria, this is a very optimistic budget. India's growth is estimated to be 9.2%, as mentioned by the Finance Minister. Please tell us your opinion and viewpoint on the budget. I would request Mr. Kajaria to kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a very good afternoon, everybody. It's a very positive budget. I think they have given a roadmap, at least for the growth for the next 3 to 5 years. I think that's a positive point which I see from the budget. They have also introduced the digital rupee. Instead of taxing cryptocurrency, which they have done, they have introduced a digital rupee to be taken out by RBI. Incentives for startups, they have extended by 1 year, very positive. Incentive for new companies, which was to expire on March 23, has been extended by 1 year. I think these are some of the key points. I think rest of my colleagues will share, but very positive budget which has given us a roadmap for next 3 to 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kajaria, for joining us and giving us your feedback, your opinion. And now I would request Mr. K.S. Mehta, former President, PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industries, to kindly join us. As far as the manufacturing sector is concerned, Mr. Mehta, how promising this budget seems to be for that particular sector?
Both for the manufacturing sector and the services sector.
Right.
This seems to be a budget which encourages activity on all fronts, and more importantly, will lead to a flow of credit into these sectors, especially to the SME sectors and the tourism and hospitality and related activity sectors.
Right.
And therefore, it will lead to a revival of these sectors which have been worst affected by the pandemic.
Right.
One thing which we would like to know from Dr. Sharma, what are the figures of fiscal deficit? Because none has been announced in the speech. And that will greatly influence the interest, the regime of interest, which may come around in the current year. It appears that the continuous improvement in GST collections and the expected collection in direct taxes from a growth of 9% in GDP has substantially buttressed the flow of funds as planned by the government. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe that it is still, since we are still reeling amidst the pandemic, it becomes really, really important to focus on the areas which has been rightly mentioned by the Finance Minister. I would now request Mr. Ashok Khanna, former President, PhD Chambers of Commerce and Industries, to kindly join us and tell us about how this budget is helping boost the growth and development of the country.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the PhD leadership and the Secretariat for organizing this meet, particularly during pandemic days when we cannot physically come and be part of these discussions. I would overall say that my colleagues earlier who have spoken to me had made my task easier. They have spoken very well. I think the overall, you have asked me a question. It will definitely give a boost to the economy. Maybe some people may feel it is not something they've been given by way of income tax benefits, etc. But I see it as a very growth-oriented budget. My colleagues have also said, Rajiv Talwar was mentioning about housing. I think this is housing and construction. These are very, very important measures which the government has taken. This sector has been lagging behind for a long time. It needed growth. However, the MSMEs, which is the main source of encouragement to the industry, they have been encouraged, and I am very sure, because I am speaking, madam, from Chandigarh, and I know the MSMEs are looking forward to this budget, whether it be Amritsar, Ludhiana, or other regions, Chandigarh. But I think they should get a boost. But however, my colleagues have already said the highways projects announced by the Finance Minister and the main focus infrastructure. So I think K.S. Mehta was mentioning that the money will flow. I think that is a very big thing. And I also feel that lot has been done on the compliances with the Finance Minister has been saying. But I would say this compliances to be made to make the life easier, they have to be done in such a way that the grassroots levels, particularly the state levels, I think the digitalization has a lot of emphasis. I think the Prime Minister always mentions his focus on the technology. The stock market, I believe, has taken up till now the budget quite kindly, because you never know how they will behave. But today I can see, I was seeing the census and the Nifty. I think they were behaving all right. Sir, madam, you have also mentioned about telecom sector. Telecom sector, you have given a big boost, but I am sorry to say that as a common person, common man, we cannot get the connectivity to ring up somebody on a mobile. It takes 5-6 times of energy of user. I think these are the some things which need to be taken up at the grassroots level. There's a big financial support to the states, because I am sure the states will ask PhD chamber to help them in these areas. There are mention about direct taxes. I think the main focus has been on capital gains, which has been reduced to 15%. I think this will be a great help. The GST, the Madam Finance Minister has announced, has touched 1.14 lakh crores. This is a big thing. But however, I must say, GST still needs a lot of reform at the grassroots level, at the working level. And I am sure the finance minister is already looking into this. But another area which has been touched, defense has been given a lot of emphasis. The domestic industry has been given a share of 68%, which is a very big thing. I think with these remarks, I will leave it to some other colleagues who will be joining later. A lot of emphasis, for example, as a common man, this is the emphasis on e-passports. This is a very good step. The finance minister looked upon what a common man thinks. Agriculture, which has taken 1 year of this, this road blockage. I think that has been given good emphasis. Farmers have been looked after, and I think this is something which is very important. There has been an attempt to make exports better. I do not know how far they will succeed. And with these remarks, I thank the Chamber and the Secretariat for giving me the opportunity. And my good wishes from Chandigarh to all of you on the dais and otherwise in the audience.
I believe that was a complete overview of the important pointers mentioned by the finance minister in the union budget. And with that, I would now request Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, immediate former president of the PhD chamber, who is present with us here, to kindly help us decipher that the budget announcement, are they sufficient as far as the share of manufacturing sector in the India's GDP is concerned?
Thank you so much. Let me just compliment my colleagues, my seniors, all the former presidents who have given a very enlightening review of today's budget announcements. Before I come to specifically to the manufacturing sector, I would like to add some comments of my own on the budget. One thing that I would like to specifically recommend is the very, very strong emphasis on Gati Shakti. The sort of importance that has been given to Gati Shakti and the stress that has been laid on this Prime Minister's own scheme is a very, very positive step, because first the intention has to be strongly addressed. And once the intention is addressed, then the action follows. What we are looking at, of course, is an action that could still do with more improvement. We are looking at 7.5 lakh crores of capex during the year, which is roughly 30% higher than the previous year. But still, there is a lot more that could have been done, in the sense that we already have a 7 lakh crore going on the last year's budget estimates of the deficit. Now, if our revenues are so strong, what we have to understand is that we have practically a K-shaped economy. And manufacturing is again a part of that. Manufacturing again has two parts. One is the large primary producers in the organized sector, who are, of course, doing pretty well. But the MSMEs, they are into a problem. And for them, what is really important is the revival of the demand. The supply side in the sector, in the economy, is needed. And for that, we need a much stronger push into the capex, because capex gives you a 2.5 times multiplier effect of whatever money is spent by the government. That is one. The other is on MSMEs. It's very welcome that the ECLGS scheme has been extended by 1 year, and the government has announced another 50,000 crore rupees to the existing amount, which I believe has not still been fully utilized. But still, I think it's a very good step, and as need be, and if the amount gets exhausted, the government should be considering extending the guarantee. It's not a budget expenditure at all, it's only a guarantee. In addition to that, what is really going to be helpful, hopefully, is the 2 lakh crore support to MSME that we hear that has been announced in this budget on the CGM-TSE scheme. The CGM-TSE scheme had not taken off properly because of the various riders that were there. Now, hopefully, that this reformed scheme, if the government is seriously aiming to release this 2 lakh crores into the sector, I think that should be a huge, huge help. One thing that could have been done for the manufacturing, MSME sector is the relief that the MSME sector needs on the high commodity prices. I think some of the steel items, there has been a reduction in customs duties, which is welcome. But there is a large number of commodities which have gone through the roof from 50 to 150% increase, whether it be steel or plastics or non-ferrous metals or so many other things. The downstream industry, the downstream sector, which is mainly MSME, should not be suffering from this high cost of materials being compounded by the high customs duties on top of these. So this is one recommendation that the chamber has been giving for a long time. And we would still again stress to the government that this needs to be looked into. The announcement for 80 lakh poor housing is going to be a huge multiplier effect again in terms of the employment it will generate, in terms of the housing need of the population that is going to be fulfilled, in terms of the expenditure into the infrastructure, which also means a huge benefit, a huge fillip to the associated industries. So all that in a way, we in general, in an overall sense, we totally applaud the direction of this budget. One thing, yes, that I would like to also mention is the announcement that the MSMEs will be paid within 10 days by the CPSEs for 75% of their bills is definitely a very, very welcome step. And the other step of L1 not being the sole criteria for ordering in the government, which has been a major bugbear for industry and for MSMEs, is now being addressed. So there will be a consideration of the quality aspects also. That is something which, as it is hopefully now going to be notified in the GFR rules for the procurement by government, I think that should be a great help. Overall, I think lots of positive steps, lots of support for the industry. 65%, 68% of defense procurement being done domestically is again a huge boost for the domestic industry. So lots of things. I think no single budget can satisfy everybody, but lots of great things, the very positive direction, and lots to feel very optimistic about. And the most optimistic thing is the way we have exceeded our budget estimates for our budget deficit. That having been such a strong step, I think let this trend continue and let this country to continue to look at 8 to 9% of continued growth over the next years. That's what will take us to the $5 trillion economy that we are talking about.
Right.
Thank you.
I believe that was very rightly mentioned that no single budget can satisfy every sector, but I believe that the recommendations mentioned by the chamber, I think as far as the MSME sector is concerned, that is something.
Quite a few of them have been addressed, and I'm very
Yes.
happy, especially on the ECLGS. We had asked for 2 lakh crores. Okay, 50,000 crores at least has been given. So,
right.
So I think that's a
I
big.
believe that is a slow
yeah.
process, step by step. I
Yeah.
think that every inclusion, but
And
as far as the budget,
CGM-TSC, again, the chamber had been talking about that this is not really working. So now if they decided to make some substantial changes in it, I think very welcome. The chamber has been talking so long now about expenditure into the infrastructure, the sort of importance we have got on the infra spend. Again, very welcome, because what we are looking at is something like 10.6 lakh, 9.9 lakh crores overall into the infra. I think
but
these
overall, I
are the
believe
things
that
for
is,
which we feel quite happy about. Yeah.
that is a very optimistic and a positive budget. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal. And of course, one important thing there to mention that PhD chamber appreciates the green bonds, which were very much represented to the government by the PhD chamber. So that was a very important point there, and something which the PhD chamber is very happy about, and it really appreciates also. With that, I would request Mr. Vipin Bora, Chair of Civil Aviation Committee, to kindly join us. And I would request someone to kindly help with the mic. All right. In the meanwhile, I would request Mr. DK Agarwal, former president of the PhD chamber, to kindly join us.
Yeah, I joined.
A very warm welcome, Mr. Agarwal. So I think when the budget was presented towards the beginning of the budget, Finance Minister very categorically mentioned about the strategic transfer of the ownership of the Air India, which has been completed. I think that is a very welcome step for the government and the long awaited I think, step by the government, which everyone was eyeing for.
Very true.
Kindly give your opinion about this.
Thank you for inviting me to this program. When the finance minister said that they have completed the strategic sale of Air India, I think that's a big achievement of the government. And also she mentioned that now we are going to come out with the issue of LIC. I think that is going to be a very big event in the economy of India, because LIC issue is one that this would mean that more than 2 crore investors would get added to the capital market. This would means financial inclusion and the value unlocking of LIC for the government. So that would be a big addition to the government's kitty. And the fact that this budget clearly shows that government is firing its all cylinders to make sure that the capex, which is the need of the day, which is helping the demand side as well as the supply side of which is a basic issue after this COVID-19 situation. I think this spending of 9.5 lakh crore, 7.5 lakh crore as against 5.5 lakh crore of last year, that is something very big jump, a jump of almost 37%. And the fact that fiscal deficit has been pegged at 6.4%. And when I see the absolute figure, the fiscal deficit is coming to 16.664 lakh crore, which is a very big figure. It assumes that the GDP of the country after this end of the fiscal 2022-23 would be somewhere around 260 lakh crore, almost $3.46 trillion. So if that is the figure they are talking about, I think spending that kind of money and having a target of fiscal deficit of 6.4% is a very bold step this government has taken. And now the market borrowing figure has also come, which is at 14.95 lakh crore. Nobody was expecting that kind of market borrowing figure. People were talking about 12.5 lakh crore around figure. But if that is the figure they are talking about, though it is having some negative impact on the bond market, we are seeing some pressure coming on the bond market. But having said that, the need of the hour was to spend that kind of money to give momentum to the economy, and I think this is what has been done. So kudos to this government, kudos to the finance minister that they have come out with such a growth-oriented budget. And
very rightly mentioned, Mr. Agarwal, that this was a very goal-oriented budget. On that note, I would invite Mr. Sanjay Bhatia, former president, PhD Chamber. I would request you to tell us that how this budget has been efficient in giving an impetus to the idea of New India, which has been time and again given a boost by the Prime Minister himself.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I think if you see the Honorable Finance Minister began her speech with the digital economy and fintech. I think that's something which they are looking forward to, building New India, what you are asking me. And the whole speech, I think she took into consideration the impact of COVID and how she can really help industry and those affected to come out of that. I think from that point of view, it's a good budget. And MSME, I think already Sanjay Agarwal and other people have already mentioned. I really don't want to repeat, but let's welcome the extension of ECL GS and TSME schemes. I think that's something which is important. And also that the railway to develop projects, particularly for MSMEs, so that they can get more opportunities there. Similarly, defense capex, 68% for the domestic industry would really help the domestic industry, including MSMEs, to take benefit of that. And then, of course, the development of the announcement to develop 100 new cargo terminals in next 3 years. I think that's something, building the infrastructure and maybe single window portal for the green clearance to be expanded. I think that is where the industry is really suffering. So, I mean, in case that single window really covers wide spectrum of industries, I think for the green clearance, I think that would be very helpful. I would particularly welcome the rectification, giving an opportunity to the industry or the assessees to rectify their mistakes in the IT returns for the next 2 years. I think that's something which, as she said, is putting more trust on the assessees. I think that's something which we should really welcome. And lastly, I would mention about the steel. I think let's welcome the exemption of the scrap duty for 1 more year, and also removal of various anti-dumping duties on coated steel and other things, because keeping in mind that the steel prices have already gone up very high in the domestic market. I think these are few things I thought I'll just mention. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatia. And I would request Mr. Mukul Bagla, Chairman, Direct Taxes Committee, who is here with us on the podium today. Mr. Bagla, please help us understand your viewpoint on the direct taxes in the budget.
Thank you so much. First point, I think the budget speech started with a thanks to the taxpayer, which is a very noble gesture. I think the government has put a lot of stress on trying to settle the disputes and to clarify the things for the taxpayer. One very good thing which they've done is that they've allowed the assessee to revise their returns for a period of 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, if the transaction was bona fide not shown by him in his return of income, based on the transaction report which the income tax department has. So that's a very, very welcome change. Then I think the incentive for startups, which has been extended by 1 more year, is extremely very beneficial. We were expecting, in fact, as a chamber, we had requested the finance ministry to give some clarity on the taxation of the cryptocurrencies. So the finance minister has mentioned that there will be a flat tax rate of 30% and there will be no deduction allowed for expenses. This slight anomaly there, I would say we were expecting that crypto, which is held by the assessee for a period exceeding 2 years, should become a long-term capital asset and tax should be paid at the rate of 20% on that. But a 30% flat tax rate is doable. At least there's some clarity on the taxation, but I would say a 20% tax rate on long-term capital gain would have been better.
Right.
A few other matters which I would like to highlight would be encouraging that there's no increase in the capital gain tax, which the stock market and a lot of industry people were expecting, which is very welcome. Disappointing, there's been no change in the tax rates for MSMEs and sole proprietorships, which are the small businesses and needed some level playing field, which are still taxed at the rate of 30% as against corporates, which are taxed at the rate of 22%. We're very happy. This was one of the main demands of the chamber when we said that for the new manufacturing units, the concessional rate of tax of 15% shall be extended for manufacturing units which were not able to start manufacturing by 31st March 23 because of the COVID pandemic. There were a lot of uncertainties in the market. So the finance minister has extended that date by 1 year, which is again extremely welcome. One of the main another aspect was that there is a surcharge as high as 37% if the income is above 5 crores. So even if someone is earning a long-term capital gain on sale of property, the effective tax rate used to be 20% tax plus 37% surcharge.
Right.
So which amounted to close to 28%. So what the Honorable Finance Minister has clarified that is that the surcharge on long-term capital gain is restricted to 15%. So at least that will help in having the tax rate of 20% plus 15% surcharge, that is 23%. So that becomes extremely beneficial in respect of big stake sales by startups, by huge sale of properties by
Again,
various
that is
individuals.
very promising on the part of the direct taxes as far as they are concerned. On that note, I would request you to kindly hold your thought there. I would request Mr. Sandeep Somani, former President, PhD Chamber, who is joining us virtually right now. Mr. Somani, Finance Minister told about the emergency credit line guarantee scheme, that how it has helped in mitigating the problems that arose from the pandemic and helped the MSME sector. Please help us understand that how this scheme was very promising, and considering that till 2023, what goals we have to achieve as far as the MSME sector specifically is concerned.
So see, what business looks for in the budget is continuity. And I think the Honorable Finance Minister has delivered very well. She had promised earlier also continuity in her thought and in the budget. And I think they are acting on that. Directionality of the budget is very good. Focus on infrastructure, focus on creating Atmanirbhar Bharat. As far as the ECLGS scheme that you are talking of, it's been extended for another year, and the Honorable Finance Minister has put another allocation of 50,000 crores on it. I think it's a good move, because during the pandemic period in 2020 and 21, one of the key problems for small industry and medium industry was the lack of liquidity. And this scheme provided significant benefit to the smaller sectors to be able to be getting liquidity, and that was critical for their survival at that time. With the pandemic still not having gone, it is important, and I think this is a good move by the government to ensure liquidity for the smaller companies, and this will go a long way in making sure that they have the lines of credit available to continue their business in a better manner without being starved of capital. So it's a good move, and I think it will help all the small scale sector to continue to prosper.
Thank you so much. And I would now request Mr. Bimal Jain, Chairman, Indirect Taxes Committee, who is here on stage with us. Mr. Jain, indirect taxes are something which the government has talked about. So what do you think? Has the government been able to justify the indirect taxes in the budget?
If you look at from indirect taxes, GST is a big bang announcement today. Honorable Finance Minister has said for the month of July 2022, the biggest ever collection of 1,40,000 crore rupees since GST got introduced in the country. Highest ever collection, no denial to it, but what we were expecting from the Honorable Finance Minister. When GST collection is growing, look at last 2 years, we are all struggling with the COVID. But COVID factors are being muted when we look at the GST collection. So this was the right time I was expecting from Honorable Finance Minister a roadmap by when they are going to include 5 specified petroleum products into GST regime. Why we want a roadmap? Because this 5 specified petroleum product is used by all the sector, including goods sector and service sector. And they're the cascading of taxes. You are paying pre-GST taxes of which no credit is available. At least a roadmap. I do understand that the pre-GST collection is a revenue collection for central and state both together. But they have to come forward and provide a roadmap by when they are going to really include these 5 specified petroleum products into GST regime. First. Second, presently we have seen a different GST rate applicable, starting with 3%, 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%, and there's certain item on with compensation cess. When revenue is growing and growing so faster, and we have heard late Finance Minister Arun Jaitley ji, he talked about that this 6-tier GST rate going to be merged into 2-tier, 3-tier rate, but nothing is being stated on those rate rationalization. See, ultimately, if GST revenue is growing, you have to take all these along for seeing the faster growth and development. And third, from GST perspective, in GST, many things we are struggling today. Yes, They are talking about facilitation. They are talking about enforcement. And we all know that enforcement last 2 years, lot of litigation, revenue collection has gone up. We have talked about fake invoice and fake credit, but practical problem which we are finding in trade, industry and commerce, that the buyer is being penalized for non-payment of taxes by the defaulting supplier. My humble submission and question, that could have been corrected. Why buyer would be penalized? Who is a bona fide buyer? If supplier is not paying the taxes, go and catch hold of the supplier. And along this side, the important point which I would like to draw here, GST got introduced with a big bang note, seamless flow of credit. Are we getting seamless flow of credit? There is obstacle. And we have introduced section 17, which is negative list of ITC. Why credit is not being given in GST? And it is not helping us to tag seamless flow of credit. Having said that, another announcement which we were expecting, and somewhat I have not seen the rate, how the custom duty rate is being rationalized. What we wanted from PSG Chamber of Commerce, that basic custom duty rates should be reduced or exempted on raw material, which is being used for domestic manufacturing. And why it is being required? Our Honorable Prime Minister has said vocal for local, make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And that's the reason we have proposed from PSD that raw material imported, basic custom duty should be done away with. That should be used for the local manufacturing. She talked about the certain, component raw material, basic custom duty is being rationalized. I've not seen the final point, but I do recall she talked about electronic sector, chemical sector.
Right.
So good suggestion. Coming
Right.
to the
Right.
one more point.
Okay.
One more point.
Yeah.
The third pointer, which is very important, the custom exemption. 350 custom exemption are being withdrawn. So what kind of exemption are being withdrawn? I have not seen the final point. I do not know what is the implication of such withdrawal of custom exemption notification, but definitely it is going to have some cost implication. But foremost and important, SEZ Act. Now they're saying the old SEZ Act going to be repealed and new law would be coming to export and boost. They wanted participation of state along with the center and use best of infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And all the facilities available to the state for export. And that is a good announcement by Honorable Finance Minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jain, for joining us. And now I would introduce Mr. Suman Jyoti Khaitan, former President, PhD Chamber. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us here this afternoon. One of the important focus areas which the Finance Minister has said is about the PM Gati Shakti. The 7 engines which she has talked about is roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways, and logistic infrastructure. So, Mr. Khaitan, is the budget which has been presented today, do we see it pulling forward the economy and leading to the more job creations, particularly in this need of the hour when the pandemic has worstly affected? We all are in the midst of this pandemic, this COVID situation. So how do we see this giving an impetus to the job opportunities and creation?
Well, I would just like to point out, as you're all aware, the budget announcement is of course positive.
Right.
It shows a vision. And I'm very glad that they are not thinking just for year to year.
थोड़ी आवाज कम आ रही है. If you can increase the sound.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khaitan.
Can you hear? Is it better now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now it's better.
Okay, thank you. Well, one good thing is that this budget is not meant for just year to year, but they're thinking of long term. So that's one credit which the government certainly deserves. Another problem is that the budget lays on a vision. Now the vision is good. The real test, as in the past, will lie in the implementation. And implementation record in some sectors has been good, like roads, etc. But in some sectors, as I mentioned, the test will lie in the implementation. And COVID, let's hope that no other new strain comes in. If no new strain of COVID comes in, then I think this can be a takeoff stage because the credit is being given. The economy is on the move. The digital economy is going on. As you can see, the number of transactions online. Transactions. So coming back to your question, I think yes, If they can get over this implementation, I think it's a very positive step. The only thing is, and another good thing about the budget is that they are focusing on capital formation, which is very good, because that's how you get your result. And even if the physical deficit has been exceeded, but it's okay, because we're going through extraordinary times. So just asking you a question, I'm very positive. They should now focus on the implementation part.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khaitan. And now I would request Mr. Mohit Jain, Chair of Haryana Committee, PhD Chamber, to kindly join us virtually. Jain? Oh, I have Mr. Vipin Bora. Okay. Mr. Bora, a lot have been said about the logistics sector. So how the budget is, do we see contributing towards reducing the cost of logistics?
Thank you very much.
And before going ahead, I would a brief introduction about Mr. Vipin Bora. He is Chair, Civil Aviation Committee, PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industries. A very warm welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for giving me opportunity. To be honest with you, this time we are very happy the way the emphasis has been given on the, on the infrastructure and civil aviation things. This is the first time we see so much has been said on the logistics and airports, And the main thing which they have covered is in the seven sectors which they have covered in the Gati Shakti. The two sectors are airports and logistics,
Absolutely.
which has given a lot of emphasis on this whole budget. Now, in the budget, they have also said that there will be 4 multimodal parks which needs to be developed in the next 2 to 3 years. Roads, 25,000 kilometer roads. Now, all these infrastructure, the way the Prime Minister's policy of Make in India is going on, and if we do not give emphasis on the infrastructure at this stage, we'll be left behind. There's no point if you cannot ship the goods or transfer the goods from one place to another. The infrastructure plays a very, very important role in the growth of the economy. And now the other thing which they have said in the budget is 100 new cargo terminals to be promoted in the next 3 years.
Right.
That's another big boost to the economy and to the trade. And also in the skilling sector, they have given something on the logistics sector. In the skilling, we should have skilled people in the logistics sector, which is coming up. Now, another very important thing which they have covered is, startup for drones manufacturing. Drones, as you know, is taking a very, very important role in the future, distribution and a lot of things, for the country.
Absolutely.
And drones, in this budget, they have given, taken it as a startup, they are giving a lot of preferences to drones manufacturing, which is a very, very good thing. And on the other hand side, they have given a lot of emphasis on the northeastern infrastructure.
Right.
In the northern eastern states, there was very few infrastructure. There were no flights, no airports, no all those things. And in this budget, they have given a lot of emphasis on developing northeastern sectors. Northern eastern sector, there are so many commodities, agri products which are being produced in northeast India, which are not being, even transported within India from one state to another. A lot of those agri products used to go waste. And with these giving boost to the northeastern infrastructure, now they'll be able to ship to all over India, and even from northern states, they can ship it to overseas also. So there's a lot of things which has been said.
Right.
Now, only other thing we were expecting, were to reduction in the ATF fuels and all in the infrastructures, but we haven't seen the detail. Nothing has been said, so we are not aware of the details. And of course, there was few things which we asked for: GST simplification on the exports and allied services along with it. So unless we have all these details, there's no, I don't want to comment anything.
Right.
So you see the details, then we'll come to know. So on the whole, as far as civil aviation sector is concerned, we are quite happy, and we hope that this will be a big boost to the industry and
infrastructure. Thank you so much. And Mr. Mohit Jain, can we please have you with us on the screen? Ajay Beri, Chair for Food Processing Committee.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
A very good afternoon, sir.
And yeah, hello, everyone.
So how do we
Thank you.
see the budget today? A very promising and very optimistic budget presented by the Finance Minister.
Yeah, good afternoon to all, and good afternoon to a very buoyant budget, which is to foster agriculture. One of the main features which one can observe is the organic farming support.
Absolutely.
So with the organic farming support, we can all look forward to in coming times to vegetables and fruits which could be without insecticides and pesticides. This is one of the very major things that the government has undertaken this time. And then we can also see that 2.37 lakh crores which have been earmarked for increasing of the MSP. This is another very positive thing which they've done. In addition to that, there is emphasis fruit and vegetable procurement support. Fruit and vegetable procurement support will also go a long way in helping.
Budget. Fiscal deficit 6.4%.
Hello, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Beri.
Yeah, so there is emphasis on fruit and vegetable procurement support. This support will enhance the capabilities of food processing industry as well. And along with that, e-payments will again support this whole process, because when we are buying fruits and vegetables, when the industry is procuring them from farmers, there is a disconnect, in terms of payment. So this is why the mandis, become very important. But with the e-payments and the rupee digitization, this gap can be closed drastically. In addition to that, there is MSME support, which will again be there for food processing industry. And then certain tools which are used by agriculture have been, which were imported, they have been now put under the list of duty structure. So therefore, Indian manufacturing of these agri tools, that industry will get further support. And these 100 cargo terminals which are going to come up, these cargo terminals will help assist a lot in exports of fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables. Solar energy emphasis will help agriculture. And then agricultural cooperatives low taxes will to 15%. This will also be, give credit flow. And then, things like engaging new age technologies, which was one of the things that we had asked for from PhD for farming, things like Kisan drones, in spraying of insecticides and
Mr.
pesticides.
Beri, this is about the inclusive development which the government has talked about, and it
Yes,
is the top priority which the finance minister has pointed out in the budget itself. On that note, I would request Mr. S.K. Sabharwal to kindly join us. Sabharwal?
He is joining. Sabharwal ji, join karo.
I would request Mr. Vikram Singh Mehta, co-chair, Economic Affairs Committee, to kindly join us.
I think it's a mixed budget. I'm sorry for differing with most of the speakers. I think while there are a lot of positives, while there are a lot of positives, I think some things needed more attention, like healthcare, education, inflation. Some more tax breaks could have been given to the middle class, maybe revision in the tax slabs. More should have been done for the MSME sector. While credit flow is good, like Pradeep ji mentioned, they're reeling from very high commodity prices. More should have been done to help employment-oriented manufacturing.
Right.
The employment statistics are scary. We saw what happened 3 days ago in Bihar, where for 30,000 jobs, there were 1.2 crore applicants. Given the strong revenue flow in terms of tax buoyancy, I feel some concessions to the MSMEs would have helped push employment, since MSMEs are the biggest recruiters in the country. So I hope there's more in the detail, but I just feel these were some big ticket things which probably could be addressed. The good thing is they have a vision of a digitally driven India. I mean, right through the budget, they're talking about using digitization to link agriculture, infrastructure, payments, etc., which is all very positive. Let's hope there's more in the fine print for MSMEs, employment creation, and the middle class. Thank you.
I think that was a very important point mentioned there about the digitalization, which has been time and again not only mentioned by the government, but I believe that this budget was specifically talking about digitalization, which has been a driving force since, I believe, last 2-3 years since the pandemic has hit us. This is something which has played a very pivotal role.
And I think one more important thing is the pandemic has taught us we need good public health infrastructure. It's just not there, especially in the smaller towns and cities. And this budget should have probably laid the roadmap for a long-term public health infrastructure system. Let's hope it's been taken up in future. I appreciate, but somewhere I think a public health system revamp is called for.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mehta. I hope Mr. Mohit Jain has joined us. I would request Mr. Digvijay Daburia, Chair. Mr. Mahendra Rustagi, Co-Chair, Environment Committee.
Yeah, good afternoon. I hope I'm audible. So I think it's a matter of pride, and I would like to congratulate the PSD chamber and the chairman, the Environment Committee, Dr. J.P. Gupta, that the very strong recommendation made post International Climate Summit in September, which was all the recommendations which were submitted to the Prime Minister of India. And one of the very strong recommendation was to consider issuance of the green bond with the sovereign guarantee. This has been accepted in toto, and it has been one of the major announcement in the budget, wherein they have announced the issuance of the green bond and the proceeds to be deployed for the public sector, the projects. Many other announcements were made with respect to the sustainability and the climate change. And one of them important announcement was regarding PLI for the solar power related manufacturing, the project amounting to a massive amount of 19,500 crore. Another announcement was allowing the agro waste, the biomass pellets 5 to 7%, allowing the co-firing in the thermal the projects. This is also from the environment perspective, because stubble burning has been a big menace and the nuisance. So many other measures announced promoting the investment in the clean energy storage. So this was also very encouraging. And the last one was, the putting imposing duty of ₹2 per liter in the unblended fuel. Where the government is, promoting blending of ethanol in the fuel to promote the usage of the agro waste. So these were the important announcement with respect to the sustainability and the environment. And we are quite happy and encouraged with these announcements. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rustagi, for giving those brief details over the Green Bonds initiative of the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And Mr. Amit Chaudhary, co-chair of Rajasthan chapter, is here with us. We would love to have inputs from you on the budget, sir. I believe there is some issue with your audio.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chaudhary. you're
Audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
अलग चल रहा है, लेट चल रहा है.
Glitch there.
My,
Chaudhary, are we audible to you?
yes, you are audible. And my summation on this budget is this is a very balanced budget. And Honorable Finance Minister have taken care of all the schemes. Government, Prime Minister Gati Shakti is going to boost the infrastructure sector, the housing for all mission. They have contributed a lot in that also, 80,000 houses and 45,000 contribution, which is going to boost real estate sector. And the revolutionary thing in this is the Finance Minister have allowed us to submit the revised return. That is a revolutionary part in this budget. And the second thing is the 10 days, you can get the payment of your 75% of the government supplies. This is again a revolutionary step in the budget. So I must congratulate. This is a very good budget, and the Finance Minister have taken care of the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme by introducing the 68% of the domestic supplies in the defense sector. So I must congratulate all. This is a very balanced and very good budget, which will boost the economy in the coming time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary. And Chair for Rajasthan chapter, Mr. Digvijay Daburia is also with us virtually. Can we have Mr. Daburia on screen?
Yes, hello. Am I audible?
All right. In the meanwhile, I would request Mr. S.K. Sabharwal. He is there on stage with us. Mr. Sabharwal, lovely to have you with us. We were in fact waiting for you. We announced your name also. So we were eagerly waiting to have you. So Mr. Sabharwal, my question to you is how this budget is useful for the stock market specifically. Are they happy?
Yes. If they are not happy, they are not this happy also.
Okay.
Normally, after the budget, either the stock market goes up or goes down, which hasn't happened. Overall, I will say that it is a growth-oriented budget. The fiscal deficit is kept at 6.4%, is targeted, which was 6.9%. The lost of emphasis is there on capex from 5.5 lakh crore to 7.5 lakh crore, which clearly states that there will be boost for the infrastructure. Another good thing in this budget is that surcharge on the capital gain is capped at 15%, which used to be even up to 30%. That is the total tax used to come up to 28%, which will now be a maximum of 23%. Good number of incentives are there for the startups, even for the MSME. But from the capital market point of view, if I tell, the first announcement is that LIC issue will be coming shortly. And she also mentioned that the other public sector disinvestment will follow, which is a very positive sign. Digital currency is being legalized. RBI has to introduce the digital rupee, which is a very welcome step. From the capital market point of view, Gift City is being encouraged. In the Gift City, any international university can come, which is a very, today we have to send our kids to study abroad. If all those universities are permitted to establish themselves in the Gift City, that is also a very welcome step. International Arbitration Center will be allowed in the Gift City itself, which also is a very welcome step as far as I feel. I also very strongly feel that when people will go to the nitty-gritties of the budget, market is likely to go up from here. And maybe what normally people wants to listen, we may be touching the new high, maybe by the March end or the April end. That's what I very strongly feel. And that's what is the total from the market point of view.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Vora, for joining us. And now I would request Mr. Atantra Das Gupta, Chair of Health Committee, to kindly join us. How do we see? A very warm welcome, Mr. Gupta. How do we see the budget justifying the health sector, especially when the COVID has badly hit the country?
Well,
and talking about, I'm sorry to interrupt, and talking about the second wave of the pandemic.
The provision budget has been focused on the infrastructure of the health and especially the mental condition of
I think
Indians.
I would request Mr. Gupta to kindly help us understand this topic. I request you that I'll come back to you, Mr. Chaudhary.
Regarding the infrastructure provisions of health sector in the proposed budget, it is a very good step. Plus the mental condition affected post-COVID has been considered for the first time. The mental status, the mental condition of Indian citizens has been considered first time, I think, in the union budget. The 23 telemedicine centers under the nodal office of NIMANS is a very welcome step by our finance minister. And this will definitely help in improving the health condition of Indians, which is very important as of today.
Thank you so much. And again, first of all, I apologize, Mr. Gupta, to having you wait. Mr. Gupta, what your submission is for the budget as far as the health particularly is concerned?
So if I look in totality, it's a wonderful budget. But regarding the health, there was a lot of expectation, because if you look at COVID-1 and COVID-2, if I talk from the medical device of the pharma, the entire division has outgrown. And we are not only excelled in production, but also we are in a position to export. So we expected a bit more exemptions, allocations in terms of healthcare. Though there has been a mention of telemental support, but e-health and teleconsultation has grown, not only from the government side, but also from the private side. So a proper roadmap is required to strengthen this facility. Because today, if you look at the doctor
ratio with the patient, still we are one of the lowest in the world. It is 0.7 or 0.8 to 1,000 patient or population. So overnight, we cannot increase the number of doctors. But what we can do, we can introduce technology in order to breach this gap. So for this, a proper infrastructure, proper roadmap from the government is very much necessary. Now, if I come back to the doctor ratio again, today there are 539 medical colleges. And if we look from 2014 to 2019, in the span of 5 years, there has been a 47% of increase in government medical colleges and 33% increase in the private medical colleges. But still, there is a huge dot of doctors. So the government should look differently in order to produce more doctors in the country. Thank you.
And I believe that the Tele mental health program that is set to be launched by the government, which has categorically been mentioned by the finance minister, is something which can be a fillip to the people suffering from the mental illness, specifically that pandemic situation.
Yeah, this is a very welcome step. But as I have said, more comprehensive measure or roadmap needs to be taken in order to make it bigger and better.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Gupta. And now we have Mr. Dev Goyal, co-chair of MSME committee. Mr. Goyal, talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, which has been stressed upon by the finance minister, as far as the MSME sector, talking about this sector particularly, how it can be a game changer in giving an impetus to the Atmanirbhar Bharat dream of the government and becoming self-sufficient.
Thank you, madam. Thanks for giving me a chance to participate in this event. The Honorable Finance Minister has said that 1.5 lakh post offices across the country will provide the banking services. This is a very, very welcome sign. As we talked about the Atmanirbhar Bharat, I consider the farmer as a MSME. He is also an industry. His limitation is that he has no access to the banks which are far away from his village. And when he goes to the bank, he is not welcome there because he needs a very small amount of loan. The government has announced certain schemes for the farmers that they get subsidized loan at 7% interest. And out of this, 4% again is given a grant by the government. So effective rate of loan to the farmer is 3%. Still he is not able to avail it because all the banks, they would prefer a farmer who needs heavy amount of loan. Small farmers with 50,000, 1 lakh, they are not welcomed. And he is deprived of the government scheme. So this post offices, if they start working as a bank in the villages, this will make the farmers Atmanirbhar again because they will be able to avail of the loan and the scheme of the government. They will be able to take advantage of. Now, coming to my MSME sector, I was expecting that capital gain tax, which is as per Section 54 of Income Tax Act and applicable to the real estate industry, shall be extended to cover the MSME sector also. Unfortunately, this has not been announced. Now, MSMEs generate employment. They create products for the welfare of the people. But if the capital gain tax is applicable for putting the money in the industry, then this is definitely an obstruction in the growth of the industry.
Who's next?
My another point is that all the industries should be allowed to work smoothly. The government has announced certain schemes for the startups. It's a welcome sign. But as a startup should come up, but the existing industries must also survive. Now, what is happening is we have suffered very badly because of the COVID-19 for the last more than 2 years. Every now and then, our actions, our productions are being stopped either by the NGT or by the Pollution Control Department. We are not allowed to run our factory on generators. We are not given electricity continuously, uninterrupted, quality supply of electricity for the industries. Now, real estate also, they say the blanket ban on the real estate for next 2 to 3 months because of the pollution. In the real estate, there are more than 20 operations which do not produce any pollution. Now, only one particular constituent can be banned if they create pollution. Say, for example, if you go for air conditioning work, if you go for electricity installation work, if we go for any kind of interior firefighting work, plumbing work, they do not produce any pollution. So why a blanket ban on the industry? If you ban a real estate industry for 3 months, thousands of small scale industries get suffered. Those suppliers who supply raw material to these real estate and even to the industries which are coming up, the project get delayed by 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, because there are obstructions in the way of their operations. So my suggestion would be that don't put a blanket ban. Put a ban on the polluting industry only for that particular portion. Even in the industry, when we use generators, we use the same kind of fuel in the generator as we use in the trucks and cars. So if the trucks and cars are allowed to work and operate, why there is a ban on the industry? Industries are normally away from the populated areas, in the outskirts of the cities. And hardly 5 to 10% of the diesel gensets are being used in the industry, not the entire load. So what is the kind of pollution they produce? Can it reach the industry in the populated areas? So there is a need to think about all these points and then take a suitable decision so that the industries survive. New industries come up, allow the old industry to survive.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Mr. Rupender Sachdeva, Chair of Punjab Committee, is also joining us. Mr. Sachdeva, the union budget talks about Amrit Kal for the next 25 years, from India at 75 to India at 100. This is something which, again, the finance minister has put emphasis on, has emphasized on. I would love to have your comments on this.
We all are hearing the stalwarts of chambers from different committees and different states. But I believe from Punjab side, I would like to say that it's a very good budget, appreciable, have been taken care of many good aspects, especially MSME, the additional allocation. And this emergency credit also has been extended with 50,000 crore of rupees. MAT for the cooperative societies reduced. They have talked about anti-dumping, which was put up last year on the alloys and bars has been revoked. Then PLI scheme for solar power for 16,000 crore has been allocated. Defense production has been capped for the domestic industry for 68%. And the defunct SCZ, which was not giving any benefit at this moment, they have talked about to review it further and bring the new law. I believe for the poor section, affordable housing, 8 million, houses will be put up in this year. That's a good step, but they have not talked about anything for the middle class, any relief which people were expecting, the taxation, because they are the people who are suffering with the double taxation not getting any relief while buying the goods and the paying the tax. So it's a double taxation, I believe. They have talked about the direct payment of MSP to the farmers now for 100%, which is a good step. Talked about the smart villages, 5G and optic fiber to every village. This is the need of the hour, and they should, push it more. Deficit of GDP has been reduced. They have, achieved 6.4%, which was earlier 6.8 or 6.9 targeted. It's appreciable. I believe that return amendment for 2 years option is also a very good step, which will give much relief to many individuals or the companies who get harassed from the income tax department officials and pay so much of pressure on their mind.
Absolutely.
This is a very good step. And overall, I believe this is a very good budget.
I think overall, this is a very promising budget, which everyone has been saying and telling us about. Mr. Ranjan Sehgal, co-chair of the Tourism and Hospitality, is also with us. Sir, as far as the hospitality sector is concerned, so the government has said that the hospitality services by the small and medium sector are yet to bounce back, considering the pandemic effect. So the government has decided to extend the ECGL service for this sector by March 2023 with an increased cover of 50,000 crore rupees. So how do we see this budget for the tourism and hospitality sector?
Good afternoon. Thanks PhD Chamber for giving us this platform. I think as someone said that budget is not everybody likes the budget. It's good for someone and not good for other. As you know, the travel and tourism hospitality industry for any country is a big contributor to the GDP, to the highest generation for the employment also. And, travel and tourism is a big industry, but from the last 2 to 3 years, because of this pandemic, this is the industry which is suffering a lot. And as you said that to the hospitality industry, they are giving this 50,000 crores. But the problem is that travel agents, the tour operators, the transporters who have to fill these hotels, who have to provide services to the clients, they are not taken care of. They are suffering. Lots of medium and big size travel agents, their staff has left because they are not in a position to give salaries. So we are demanding not loan, because at the moment no bank is giving loans to the travel and tourism industry. So we are not asking for loans as other countries in the world to promote tourism. They have given some grants, their funds. So we were expecting some percentage of salaries to the staff which are approved by the government of India, the travel tour operators, the transporters. They should contribute some percentage of salary to the staff so they can retain. There is no unemployment. And they should also give some kind of a percentage for the day-to-day operation of their offices. So they have said that upgradation of railway stations and airports and the roads will be there. It's good for the country, but to fill these trains, to fill these hotels, to fill the airlines, the tour operators, who is 85% in India, are filled by the travel agents. So if the travel agents are not there, who will fill these hotels and the airlines? So they have again ignored the travel industry, which were waiting very patiently from the last 2 years. And they should reduce the taxes on the travel tourism related services, which you feel, if you see in the countries like Thailand, Malaysia and other European countries, they are very, very less. So our tax component is so high on the travel and tourism related services that it's very difficult to sell. And we still expect something from the government for the tour operators who sell 85% of these airlines in the hotel industry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now Mr. Sandeep Agarwal is joining us on the stage. He is chair for Industry Affairs Committee. A very warm welcome, Mr. Agarwal. And I will ask you about the PLI. What is your suggestion to further strengthen the PLI sector? Because PLI scheme in 14 sectors, as mentioned by the finance minister, has received excellent response. Make in India, which can create 6 million new jobs to lay the foundation for the next 25 years. So as far as the PLI sector is concerned, what are your suggestions to further strengthen it?
See, PLI sector, they have started with one sector, electronics, and then they've kept on growing. Now, specialty steel is there, telecom is obviously there, mobile devices are also there. So we are keeping on adding to the PLI scheme. In this budget also, one more item has been added in the PLI scheme, which is that one. Let me see. So one more item has been added. So we say that whatever is there in the PLI scheme, but even in the industry which is covered under PLI, they have not covered certain products. Only specified products have been done. And where we see that those items have been missed, so we are advising the government that they may add those items in the PLI scheme because they will be beneficial to the economic growth.
Right.
So that overall should help on the PLI scheme. But the biggest thing I would say what the government has done, and Sharma ji, sir, our request to make the performance bank guarantees into an insurance linked scheme has been accepted by the government. This is, I think, no other chamber has come out with this, new idea, because this is out of box. Nobody has ever said. We went to even the finance ministry, and the people said that, but nobody has ever mentioned that this is even possible. And now they have accepted it. Madam said that she has talked to the IRDA chairman, and he has also agreed that an insurance-linked performance bank guarantees can be issued. This is going to be a game changer. 1.5 lakh crores in only 1 year. The industry will get more working capital freed from this PBG compared to 2 years back. Compared to the last year, because it has been reduced to 3%, it will be less amount. But then वो तो बकरे की माँ थी, कितने दिन खैर मनाती, क्योंकि अगले साल से वो पूरी 10% पे आ जाते। तो 1 साल के लिए तो उन्होंने एक्सटेंड कर दी हमारे कहने पे, जो हमने रिक्वेस्ट करी थी कि 3% पे रखा जाए. And then they have also agreed. So this is something I would say is a great victory for our chamber. Absolutely. And on top of that, in the railway sector also, what the government has done is coming out with this specialized 100 platforms. 25% of our produce gets wasted because transportation takes time. We do not produce export quality agricultural products because it just gets damaged. 24 घंटे में 24 hours it takes for the railways to transport from North India to all the ports in India. Whereas by road, it is taking around 5 to 7 days. The products get totally spoiled. The quality reduces if not spoiled. So I believe that is another thing which is going to be a game changer, because they are going to make these platforms specialized for the exports of those areas. And then in the telecom sector, as Madam has said, that we are going to get connected all the 6.5 lakh villages through optical fibers. Well, this program has been going from 2014. There has been various ideas which they have come up with. First, it was BSNL who had to do it. It was scrapped. Then the maintenance had to be done by CSC. Now that has also been scrapped. It was to be done through BBNL. That has also, the role has been translated. Now the government wants to go through the PPP mode. So what we believe is, in the telecom sector, the government should stick to one policy and then move. Yes, there will be challenges in every policy. Even BSNL was not the best choice. Then CSC was also not. But if we keep on changing tax, if we are keeping on changing tracks, what is happening is that before something starts giving results, we find that we stop working on that track and we want to move into another track. It is delaying the whole operations. This operability of this 6 lakh villages to be corrected. Then we come to the 5G. Madam has said that she wants to come out with the 5G auctions. So we totally support that government should get revenue through 5G. But the point is that if we want to come out with a spectrum sale today, now we all know, what has happened in US. There was this airlines industry has gone into a tizzy, and most of the airlines are saying that we will not fly to US. And the reason is that the 5G bandwidth which is being sold, has been sold by the US government, is very near the frequencies which are used by the airlines industry. And that has resulted into interference and failure of the the flights to operate safely. Similar things are going to happen in railways once the railways Gati Shakti and especially this railway Kavach. This is all going to require 5G frequencies. Now, if we sell these frequencies today to the government, to these operators, tomorrow those operators like in US will say, sir, हमने पैसे देके खरीदा है, इतने पैसे दिए, हमें इसको पूरे को use करना है. But if they want to use it, there will be a huge problem. There will, the railways, the whole Kavach may not be, the full-fledged Kavach. So all these things need to be done, but we believe that what this 7.5 lakh crores capex will be a game changer for the industry.
Right.
And the scheme which has come out, especially this PBG scheme, performance bank guarantee to be converted into insurance scheme,
right,
will ensure the industry grows, and then 10% growth in this GDP will not be something far off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal. And now we would love to have the closing remarks from Mr. S.P. Sharma.
Thank you, Samriti, and thank you moderating the session nicely. And I am thankful to our chair of Industry Affairs Committee for the great suggestion of PVG scheme that is converted now in the insurance. So that is a great achievement of the PSD chamber that he suggested, and he is, I believe, the originator of this suggestion. And we were earlier not able to understand the whole gamut of this scheme, but he told us that this will be a game changer for the industry, and this will enhance the working capital of the enterprises. So moving ahead, I believe all the suggestions and all the submissions by our respected chairs are very promising. And I think broadly, this is a budget for the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and this is very promising budget. And we look forward that all the announcements made in the budgets are implemented at the ground level, and there is a great trajectory of the economic growth in the coming times and to become more and more visible in the global charts. Thank you very much. Thank you, participants, for your participation throughout the day. And we are thankful to our esteemed guests for sparing their valuable time to join the session on the budget today. So over to Samriti.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. It was indeed my honor for hosting you all for this afternoon. We discussed the major takeaways from the Union Budget 2023 presented today by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and gave you a very well-balanced industry aspect today. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much, our eminent guests, for joining us, sparing your valuable time and being a part of this very important budget analysis today. So with that, I will take your leave. Thank you so much for joining us. Namaskar.
And before leaving the hall, I would request Samriti to accept appreciation token from our side for nicely managing the whole scenario. So, I would request all the chairs
चमत्कार आपने कर दिया, you are the originator, sir. आपको तो Nobel
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.